We finally got air conditioning installed at home. Coming home for summer break, I was looking forward to enjoying the cool comfort. To my surprise, my pregnant sister-in-law had the AC outdoor unit installed right outside my room. When I refused to stay there, she tearfully threatened to abort her baby unless I complied. To keep my sister-in-law calm, my brother beat me up and locked me in the room. I developed heatstroke from prolonged exposure to high temperatures and eventually died in that room. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the moment I first arrived home for summer break. I died, and then I was reborn. In my past life, my brother beat me up to appease his wife, then locked me in a room with the AC outdoor unit, which gave me heatstroke and ultimately killed me. When fate gave me a second chance, why would I repeat the same mistakes? But I happened to reawaken right as I stepped through the door. Had it been any earlier, I wouldn't have come home at all. Cutting the problem off at the root, my sister-in-law greeted me just like before, patting her pregnant belly with a smile. We've installed AC, but there's no space for the outdoor unit except your room. You don't mind, do you? Hearing those words in my past life instantly made me furious. With this scorching heat lately, you've been running the AC every night. How am I supposed to sleep when you installed the outdoor unit right by my room? My sister-in-law's eyes welled up with tears as she protested. Why can't you sleep? Everyone else manages just fine. After all my thoughtful consideration for you, this is how you repay my kindness. I'm utterly heartbroken. I threatened to dismantle the outdoor unit or else I'd leave home. To everyone's shock, my sister-in-law flew into a rage immediately. She started pounding her belly violently. If you dare leave, I'll abort this baby. I mean it. What's wrong with making you stay in that room with the AC unit? How dare you disobey me? The whole family has to listen to me now. I'm carrying the Lee family heir. My parents and brother panicked too, instantly crowding around her to calm her down. Easy now, don't get worked up. The baby's what matters. You mustn't get upset in your condition. What nonsense are you talking about? It's just asking Tessa to stay in that room. Let her stay then. Why get so worked up over this? And now you're talking about aborting the baby. The child is innocent. Exactly. Tessa, you go stay in that room. Don't upset your sister-in-law. Looking at these four people before me, it felt like they were the real family while I was just an outsider. I'm not staying there. Why don't you go live there instead? My sister-in-law burst into tears again. My brother started throwing punches at me, blow after blow, until I nearly blacked out. When I came to, I found myself locked inside the room. No matter how hard I pounded on the door, nobody responded. The air conditioner's outdoor unit roared loudly as the room grew increasingly hotter. My sweat had nearly soaked through all my clothes. My whole body felt weak. I couldn't even muster the strength to crawl. I closed my eyes and lost consciousness completely. But in this life, I won't be that foolish. Haste solves nothing. Honeyed words get the candy. Sis-in-law, you're so thoughtful, knowing I'm sensitive to cold. You deliberately installed the AC outdoor unit in my room. Having you is truly our family's blessing, I said, feigning admiration as I looked at her. Sis-in-law became flustered and tongue-tied. My sister-in-law's nephew happened to visit, giving me a puzzled look before asking, Auntie, are you really that sensitive to cold? Summer without AC must be unbearable for you. I patted his head gently. That's right, sweetheart. Auntie gets cold very easily. Turning to my sister-in-law, I added gratefully, I'll definitely sleep in this room tonight. The warmth shows such thoughtfulness. I'll cherish this gift from you. You're amazing, sis. You knew about my cold intolerance before I even mentioned it. AC gives me terrible headaches. My sister-in-law scratched her head sheepishly and said, It's nothing really. I just have a sixth sense. I knew it. No one's immune to flattery. I rushed to the kitchen to rave about my sister-in-law's skills to Mom, who was absolutely delighted. Mom says you can have a drumstick tonight. I never got chicken legs growing up. They always went to my brother. Only after my sister-in-law got pregnant did she get her share. Guess buttering her up really paid off. Well, she's the apple of the family's eye now. That unborn baby's basically our family's future crown prince. My sister-in-law's glued to her live stream shopping, with her nephew watching TV beside her. Mom's hustling in the kitchen while my brother and dad still aren't home yet. That's a golden opportunity. I dragged my broken-wheeled suitcase with loud clunks toward the room, leaving the suitcase by the door. I sneaked into my brother's and parents' room to swipe the AC remote. Crouching down, I pretended to unpack while secretly stashing the remote inside. Just as I finished these chores, my brother and father came home from work. I greeted them with a smile. Then took the opportunity to compliment my sister-in-law again in front of them. Everyone kept saying how mature I'd become, yeah, grown up indeed. They're my closest family, yet these very relatives verbally abused me in my past life simply because I refused to sleep in a room with an outdoor AC unit installed. You think you can just dismantle the outdoor unit I worked so hard to install? Do you have any idea how long each AC installation takes me? Now you're refusing to stay. What a goddamn waste of my effort. You're sleeping here tonight whether you like it or not. My brother's an AC installation technician, so this monstrosity of an installation was undoubtedly his handiwork. My father chimed in, backing him up. I've fed you, clothed you, even put you through college, and now you won't stay in one damn room. Is this how I raised you? Do I even exist as your father? You shameless wretch. You're the disgrace of our family. You deserve nothing but that room with the AC condenser. You're not fit to enjoy proper air conditioning. How dare you upset your sister-in-law by refusing to stay there? If anything happens to my son because of you, I'll end your miserable life. This house isn't grand enough for your highness. Pack your bags and get out after tonight. Your very presence offends your sister-in-law. All these years raising you were wasted. We should have married you off to that lunatic back in our hometown when we had the chance. I'll never forget those vile words until the day I die. I still can't believe they came from my own father and brother. Perhaps this is truly how they see me, thankfully in this new life. No matter what harsh words they say, I won't pay them any mind. I chatted cheerfully with everyone, complimenting each person warmly. Bro, you're absolutely killing it lately. The AC installation looks professional grade amazing, with another son on the way. You're basically living the dream life. Dad, you're aging like fine wine, nearly 60 but not a wrinkle in sight. You're putting men half your age to shame. Mom, your cooking keeps getting better and better. I haven't even tasted it yet, but just smelling the aroma makes my mouth water. It smells absolutely amazing. I love you so much, Mom. Sis, how do you maintain such a great figure while pregnant? Even as a college student, I don't look half as good as you do. I'm totally jealous, and your little one is being so well behaved too, not giving you any trouble at all. Everyone in the family was delighted by my compliments. During dinner, I kept checking my phone and occasionally responded to messages. Tessa, my dad slammed the table. Playing with your phone during dinner. Did your manners disappear into thin air? My brother kept staring at his phone without even looking up. I replied urgently, no, Dad, listen. The school called us back suddenly to assign jobs. Since I'm graduating this time next year, if I take their offer now, I'll automatically get promoted to full-time by then. The internship package is actually decent. We get stipends plus regular pay. After conversion, they'll give us an apartment outright, work 5 years with good performance, and they'll throw in a car worth over 400 grand too. The school wants us back, only 5 spots available, but I really don't want to go. I just got home and haven't spent enough time with you all yet. My brother finally looked up from his phone when he heard about the free house and car. My parents and sister-in-law's eyes lit up instantly. Silly child, you'll have other holidays to spend with us. Don't let this golden opportunity slip away. What if someone else takes your spot? Mom said, Tessa, listen to your dad. With all my years of work experience, I can tell this opportunity is solid. Just go for it and don't worry about anything else. Wire me your internship salary. I'll save it for your dowry. You absolutely must go. When you get the apartment, you have to let us come see it. You're still young, so be careful not to get scammed. Work hard and make our family proud. I can practically hear the abacus beads clicking in their heads, and they still claim it's for my own good. My brother squinted his eyes and suddenly blurted out, You're not lying to us, are you? The dinner table conversation came to an abrupt halt, putting on a wounded expression. I said, How could you think that of me, bro? Here, check my phone. All these are mass messages. Why would I lie to you? This really hurts my feelings. I was even going to tell you that once I get my driver's license and a car, I'd give it to you. I opened the chat history to show my brother. Everything was prepared long ago, just in case someone doubted it. With over 100 people in the group, would anyone really post unverified information? I just spent a little extra to get our group to play along, that's all. My brother barely glanced at it. His mind was completely fixated on the promise of giving him the car. Go ahead, just remember, a promise is a promise. After wolfing down 2 chicken drumsticks, I dragged my suitcase out the door. Before leaving, I pocketed my room key while pretending to search for the house keys. In my past life, It was this very key my brother used to lock me in my room. I booked the first high-speed train ticket out of this city, the city I once called home with my beloved family. I just stepped off the bullet train when my mom called. "You little brat, did you take the AC remote? Just because your sister-in-law put you in the room near the outdoor unit, which is actually more comfortable. By the way, you think you can steal the remote? We were being considerate. Don't push your luck. Bring it back now unless you want a beating." So they just noticed the missing remote. I'm already 500 kilometers away from home. Mom, what are you talking about? Why would I take your remote? What good would that do me? Besides, I'm always cold. I prefer staying in warm spaces. If it weren't for school, I'd be home enjoying my toasty room right now. Where did you put the AC remote? Keep looking. Maybe it's under the couch or bed. Mom, you're accusing me unfairly. I'm so hurt. Should I come home right now so you can frisk me? Fine, I'll just quit my school-assigned job then. Mom panicked. No, we'll keep searching. Don't throw away such a great opportunity. Please don't quit. Tessa, this job is our family's lifeline. My mom cautiously asked me again, were you serious about giving the car to your brother? Does that offer still stand? Absolutely. Don't worry, Mom. I don't need the car or the house. They're all yours. Tell my brother and sister-in-law not to worry either. After all these years the family's raised me, it's only right I give something back. Good, that's good then. You focus on your work. I'll go look for the remote again. Isn't your sister-in-law's nephew over there? Maybe the little rascal hid it. I quickly covered my mouth. Oh Mom, just throwing out guesses here. Please don't take it seriously. Given how fiercely my sister-in-law protects her nephew, she'd never tolerate anyone speaking ill of him. Bring it up again, and she'll probably threaten to abort her own baby like last time. I just wanted to plant a seed of doubt in my mother's mind. Whether she confronts them or not isn't my problem. After all, I was just making an offhand remark. Besides, that nephew of my sister-in-law was no saint either. In my past life when my brother was beating me, he gleefully joined in and kicked me several times, kicking me while shouting, "Die, just die, you worthless trash. You only deserve to lick my shoes off the ground." A 5-year-old child spewing the vilest words. I honestly don't know where his hostility toward me comes from. After hanging up, I threw the AC remote into the trash. Mom, Dad, brother, sister-in-law, come find me if you dare. Come search this city over 500 kilometers away from you. I know my parents would never waste money replacing a remote when there's still hope of finding the original. Those 2 air conditioners wiped out my brother's entire savings. My brother's completely broke now. Wonder if sis-in-law will pull the waterworks and make a scene. We're expecting scorching weather in just a few days. Make sure to enjoy it while you can. I reached out to my former part-time employer to ask about summer job openings. After getting her confirmation, I started apartment hunting, pulling my suitcase down the street. A gentle breeze brushed past. Strolling crowds chatted and laughed merrily, adding vibrant energy to the city's atmosphere. The air truly feels fresher after leaving home. The temperature keeps climbing. I just checked and it's hit a scorching 40 degrees back home. Wonder if they've found the remote yet. Right then, Mom calls. Tessa, why don't you come home for a bit? What for? I had no clue what she was up to this time. Your sister-in-law is hysterically demanding you come home. We're at our wits' end. She's threatening to abort the baby if you don't return. Please come back. I can't get time off work. There's no way I can make it. Sis-in-law is pulling her drama again. Talk to your boss and ask for special consideration. Just say it's a family emergency. I'm in my probation period right now. If I take leave, I'll lose my chance for full-time conversion. How am I supposed to get you that house and car then? But your sister-in-law. The sister-in-law's voice came through the phone. I don't care. What kind of crappy company won't approve leave? It's just one night at home. There's no reason they can't approve this. Make her come back. Drag her back if you have to. I must see her. She absolutely must spend one night at home. If she doesn't come back, I'll abort this baby. If I can't live, neither will this child. I'll die together with my unborn son. You're all murderers. You've killed your own grandson with your bare hands. I hate you. My baby boy hates you too. Get her back here now. Do you hear me? My sister-in-law was shrieking so loudly it made my ears ring through the phone. Look, maybe you should just go home, my mother said awkwardly. Looks like they've already gotten a replacement AC remote at home. Probably another drama about terminating the pregnancy that made my parents go get it. My sister-in-law's real motive for calling me back is likely just to make me sleep in the outdoor AC unit room overnight. I can't fathom why she's being so persistent about this. Besides, There's no way I'm going back anyway, otherwise it'll definitely end up just like last time. I was just figuring out how to turn my mom down when the boss walked in. What are you doing making calls during work hours? Can't you focus on your job, always dragging your feet when it's time to work? If you don't want this job, get out now. Dreaming about houses and cars, you're living in fantasy land. The school sent you here to learn and work, not to make personal calls. Not even God himself could give you permission to use the phone today. Can you handle this or not? I'm asking you straight up. I hung up immediately, then shot my boss a grateful look. She tossed her hair. No big deal. I'm glad I told my boss about my family situation before taking this part-time job, so now she can play along with my act. Otherwise, I'd have no way to handle my mom. I texted my mom, "Mom, I'm secretly messaging you from the bathroom. You heard how strict our boss is. One mistake and you're fired. I can't risk crossing her. If I get fired, how will I ever afford the car and house I promised you? Please tell my sister-in-law to calm down and be patient. Once I pass probation, I'll get vacation time and can come home then. Mom, I'm at my wit's end. This company keeps exploiting us, and I'm barely scraping by each day. Gotta cut this bathroom break short. The boss is literally knocking on the stall door. Please explain things to sis-in-law, and just text me instead of calling from now on. No offense, boss. You're decent, but my mom doesn't need a decent boss. Mom hasn't called me in days." Just when I thought sis-in-law had given up, the police showed up looking for me. "Hello. Are you Ms. Tessa? Ugh, we received a missing person report from your mother. She said she hasn't been able to reach you by phone for several days and was worried about your well-being. She wanted to check on you but couldn't find your address." I instinctively felt a surge of fear. Sure enough, the next moment I spotted that familiar figure not far away. My mom just called me the other day. She knows perfectly well I work here. Why would she claim she couldn't find me? Your mother mentioned you hadn't spoken recently. She only knew you worked in this city, not your exact location. She took the high-speed rail alone, then her phone ran out of credit mid-trip, couldn't make calls, and this place is completely unfamiliar to her. Now that we found you, we'll take our leave. Do look after your mother. Aging parents often act this way. Try to be more understanding. I nodded in agreement. My mom's sudden visit completely threw me off. I had absolutely no clue what she was up to. Normally she'd never spend money on train tickets to see me. At home she wouldn't even glance my way. Before I could figure it out, she was already standing right in front of me. "Come on, what are you standing there for? Take me to your place." She grabbed my hand, and I tried to pull away, but she was stronger than me. "What's wrong? Not happy to see your own mother?" Mom said angrily. "After I came all this way to visit you, this is how you treat me." Unable to refuse, I ended up bringing her back to my place. The apartment was bought by my boss, a two-bedroom unit with basic renovations that had been sitting vacant. When I first joined the company and couldn't find proper housing, I had no choice but to sleep in the office every night. My boss then rented this place to me at a discount, saying it was better than leaving it empty. Of course her condition was that I'd join her company after graduation to help out. My mom circled the apartment and nodded approvingly. "Not bad. 2 bedrooms and a living room. The company's letting us stay here temporarily. If anything gets damaged, the boss will kick us out. So please be careful with everything." Mom, what kind of talk is that? Do you really think I'm that kind of person? I'm just here to visit. Since when am I not welcome? Even if you're here, I won't have time to entertain you. I'm swamped at work. Today's my rare early off day. And then I got held up by cops. Couldn't you just call first? Would it kill you to stay home with your sister-in-law? No way. I called days ago asking you to come home and you blew me off. What choice did I have but to come see you? I told you already. I couldn't get away or take leave. What if I lose my job over this? Enough arguing. Go make my bed. I'll call your brother and his wife to let them know I'm safe. Mom cheerfully pulled out her phone to find their number. "Didn't you run out of phone credit?" My mom pulled another SIM card from her pocket and deftly inserted it into her phone. "This one's empty, but I've got a backup. Do you realize filing false police reports is illegal? You're wasting officers' time." I genuinely thought my mother was beyond help. She actually went to these lengths just to track me down. But it was too late. If I asked for your address, would you actually give it to me? This was the only way I could think of. What else could I do when my own daughter, whom I raised with so much effort, doesn't want to acknowledge me as her mother? I had to come see her. How did I never notice my mom was such a drama queen before? "How long are you planning to stay?" "Who knows? I'll stay as long as I feel like," Mom said. What, not happy to have me here? I couldn't be bothered with her. Mom stopped talking to me and called my sister-in-law instead. Vera dear, I've arrived at Tessa's place. It's quite nice here. Good environment, 2 bedrooms with a living room, and air conditioning. My heart sank when I heard Mom's words. After she hung up, I asked her, are you planning to have my sister-in-law come stay with me too? My mom rolled her eyes. What are you thinking? Your sister-in-law asked me about your living conditions here. Worried you might be too hot. Aren't you swamped with work? Go on, I'll make the bed myself. Something feels off about my mom's behavior. After all, when a weasel greets a chicken, it's no goodwill visit, and chances are, my sister-in-law might actually come stay with me, but I've got no proof that Mom's been leaving early and coming home late these days, running off to have fun whenever she's free. Her social media feed is just grid after grid of photos every single day. I tried convincing myself I was overthinking it. With her being heavily pregnant, my sister-in-law probably wouldn't come. When I got home from work that evening, there she was, my sister-in-law sitting on the couch. Back already, Tessa, this feels just like deja vu. Sis-in-law, what brings you here? I asked her with a wry smile. Came to see you. Your brother and I spent the whole day on the train. My brother came too. Is my brother here too? Doesn't he have work today? My mom immediately pulled me aside. Don't ask your brother about that. He got fired after getting caught installing AC units illegally. If you bring it up now, he'll definitely beat you up. Focus on your own job. Some questions are better left unasked. When I heard the first part of what Mom said, I actually thought she was genuinely concerned about me, but the second part hit me like a bucket of ice water. Her son is currently unemployed, so he relies entirely on my income to provide him with a house and car. But isn't that an illegal installation? Having the AC outdoor unit installed indoors definitely violates building codes. I suppose that's probably how they got caught. My brother is all bark and no bite. He's meek as a lamb outside but acts tough at home, never daring to do illegal installations for others, even in my past life. I knew it was my sister-in-law who threw tantrums demanding the AC outdoor unit be installed in my room. As for why, your guess is as good as mine. My parents and brother couldn't stand her nagging and finally caved in, but it was actually his sister-in-law's doing that got him fired. Then why isn't he blaming her? Glancing at my sister-in-law's swollen belly, I couldn't help but think how pregnancy elevates a woman's status. My brother and his wife settled in the room next to mine. My mom was sleeping on my couch. My sister-in-law would throw tantrums daily, demanding I bring her fruits. I completely ignored her. The moment I got home, I saw my mom handing me a plate of grapes. I was about to say how my mom could be so kind-hearted, but she cut me off before I could finish. Your sister-in-law wants you to remove the seeds from her grapes. I was shocked and confused. Why me? You've been home all along. Why can't you help with it? Your sister-in-law doesn't want me to do it. She specifically asked for you. Just help her out. No, I've got work to do. Upon hearing me, my sister-in-law watching TV threw another tantrum. Do it for me now. If you don't, I won't have this baby. I want seedless grapes. You have to remove every seed without damaging the skin. I don't care how, just do it, otherwise I'm getting an abortion. My mother pulled me aside pleading. Just help your sister-in-law. It won't take long, please. So she can deliver our family's precious baby safely. Not happening. I flatly refused. Then turned to my sobbing sister-in-law. You're 8 months pregnant and still threatening abortion. I'm not doing this today. Go ahead and try getting induced. I'd like to see you actually go through with it. With that, I walked into my room and shut the door. When my brother came home and heard what happened, he immediately started pounding on my door. Open this damn door. That's your sister-in-law. How dare you treat her like that, you ungrateful little shit. Come out here so I can beat your ass. I swung the door open. What's all this racket? You gonna take responsibility if I lose my job over this? Who's gonna pay for your house and car then? My brother's raised hand froze mid-swing before dropping back down. Why won't you agree to your sister-in-law's request? How exactly am I supposed to do that? You try removing grape seeds while keeping the skin perfectly intact. I could tell my brother really wanted to hit me, but he held back for the sake of the car and house. How would you know without trying? Well, I can't do it, I added before closing the door. The company benefits are great lately. Rumor has it we'll get apartments in the heart of downtown after probation next year. The boss already bought them, just waiting to distribute. At last, the house fell quiet, but my sister-in-law simply couldn't stay idle. Within 3 days, she was up to her old tricks again. When I got home, I discovered an extra AC outdoor unit installed outside my bedroom. Your sister-in-law says you run cold and need an AC outdoor unit to warm you up, so she made your brother install it in your room. See how thoughtful she is, Mom said beside me. I was genuinely shocked by my sister-in-law's shameless persistence. She sure is thoughtful. If you're jealous, Mom, why don't you stay in my room tonight? Mom immediately backed away. Are you trying to roast me alive in this heat? Aren't you worried you'll roast me to death? But you're always cold. This is good for you. Good my ass. I immediately reported the illegal installation to the property management. This community has clear regulations prohibiting indoor installation of AC outdoor units. My mom snapped. What's wrong with you? Who do you think you're cursing at? Have you lost your mind? Haven't we been good to you? You've always had your way. We never forced you to do anything. And now you're cursing at your sister-in-law when she's just looking out for you. You keep saying it's for my own good. Then why don't you live here yourself? All these years you never cared about me, and now suddenly you're looking out for me when there's something to gain. Is that it? If I hadn't cared about you all these years, do you think you'd still be in school? Still in school? My tuition was fully waived. And I paid my own living expenses. The only reason you pushed me to study was to take my scholarship money, wasn't it? Swear you never thought that. Go on. Swear you'll be struck by lightning or get hit by a car if that's what you wanted. My mom wouldn't dare. My mom could only placate me now. Don't be angry anymore. It's my fault. I'm sorry. Okay, just focus on your work and don't overthink things. I'll tell your sister-in-law later that we won't be using this room. I just found it ironic how maternal love only surfaces when it's convenient. The property management knocked on the door shortly after. How come no one reported this construction work? When were these modifications made without our knowledge? My brother and sister-in-law haven't returned from shopping yet. My mom was mumbling something incoherently. My brother used to install AC units. He did the modifications himself. I explained, I've already called him. He should be back in about 10 minutes. Before my brother even stepped inside, the property management team cornered him. Relocating your AC outdoor unit like this violates regulations. What violation? My brother bristled at the mere mention of rule breaking. Our community bylaws explicitly prohibit installing outdoor AC units indoors. Besides, wasn't your unit properly installed outside originally? Why move it inside? How was I supposed to know indoor installation wasn't allowed? Taking it down now would be such a hassle. Can't you just let it slide this once? No, we must follow the regulations. When negotiations failed, my brother had no choice but to agree to the demolition. My sister-in-law lunged at the property manager, scratching his face while screaming, "What gives you the right to tear this down? What's wrong with my husband's modifications? What law did we break? Just try making us remove it." The property staff wanted to fight back. But seeing she was pregnant, they could only dodge her attacks. Calm down, these are our community regulations. Whether you like it or not, it's coming down. We're not removing anything. I refuse to comply. Let's see who dares try. I'll lie right here. Anyone removing this AC will have to step over me. The property management had no choice but to call the police. My brother grew anxious. Don't call the police yet. Let me talk to her again. Pregnant women have mood swings. Please be understanding, Evander. How dare you side with outsiders against me? I'll abort this baby. I'm divorcing you, and you'll never see your son again. My brother was frantic, powerless to stop either side. The police arrived, accompanied by my boss, the true owner of this house. The neighborhood regulations clearly prohibit installing AC outdoor units indoors. This is a violation. Either rectify it yourselves or vacate the property and compensate the owner. I burst into tears. Sir, I'm so sorry. Please don't fire me. My family and I desperately need this job. What will we do if you let me go? My mother started crying to my boss too. We'll fix it immediately. We promise. Please don't terminate Tessa. She's such a good girl and loves her work. Absolutely. We'll make it right. My brother chimed in. The crowd was noisy and chaotic. Nobody paid attention to my sister-in-law's wailing. After signing the pledge, everyone scattered like startled birds. Time for my performance again. My boss didn't say a word earlier. Face like thunder. What if I get fired tomorrow? There goes my probation to permanent chance. I was bawling my eyes out in the living room. Sweetheart, don't cry. How about mom goes with you to apologize at your company tomorrow? We'll kneel and beg your boss for forgiveness. I need to survive. That's right, sis. Stop crying. I'll relocate the AC outdoor unit right away. Tell your boss we've fixed everything so they won't fire you. Only the sister-in-law remains seated there sulking. Why should we be the ones to change? I don't want to. Before my sister-in-law could finish speaking, my brother slapped her across the face. Shut your mouth. How dare you hit me? Have you lost your damn mind? I'm carrying your son. If you keep this up, my sister will lose her job. And if I lose my house and car because of you, you won't live to see tomorrow. My brother snapped at his pregnant wife, something he rarely did. Pack your bags, you're going home tomorrow. After the three of them left, I finally had some peace and quiet. I received some photos from a senior colleague who works at the hospital. Is this your sister-in-law? She looked familiar, so I snapped a picture for you. When I opened the images, my sister-in-law was intimately linking arms with her brother. The second photo made my jaw drop. They were kissing. Your sister-in-law came to our hospital for prenatal checkups. This guy knows her too, claiming she's his girlfriend. I've seen your sister-in-law's photos in your social media posts, so I took some pictures just to confirm I wasn't mistaken. That's definitely my sister-in-law. Isn't that guy supposed to be her brother? I've known him for years, and he's never mentioned having a sister. Doesn't he have a kid, about 5 years old? Exactly. We haven't heard any news about him getting married all these years. Then out of nowhere he's got a kid. Nobody knows who the mother is. What a pleasant surprise. Looks like my brother's sporting some lush greenery upstairs. I timed it perfectly, right when my sister-in-law was hospitalized. Send the photo to my brother. My brother hasn't replied to my message. I called my mom directly. Mom, how could sister-in-law do this? I can't believe it. Just between us, Mom. I think her nephew looks quite like her. My mother remained silent. All I could hear was my brother's furious shouting through the phone. Didn't you fucking say he was your brother? How could you kiss your own brother? Are you out of your mind? What's really going on between you two? And that nephew of yours, is he actually your son? Answer me, damn it. Is that kid really yours? Christ. Just thinking about you locking lips with your so-called brother makes me sick. I'm done with this marriage. I want a divorce. I doubt the baby you're carrying is even mine. Don't leave. Honey, I'm begging you. This child is yours. I swear it's yours. Fine, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt this once. When the baby's born, we'll do a paternity test. If it's not mine, I'll kill you. My mother went to berate my sister-in-law too. And just like that, I stayed on the line and heard everything. Until my sister-in-law went into labor. I was on a business trip with my boss when my mom called. I nodded. How much money do you have? I was taken aback. Why lead with money right away? Hand over all the money you've got. What's going on? I asked. Your brother got arrested. I need bail money. How did my brother get arrested? That child wasn't your brother's. We did a paternity test right after birth, and your brother lost control. He strangled the baby. It's my mom. I laughed coldly, but my brother's a murderer. How exactly is he supposed to post bail? Why the hell not? Are you trying to stiff me? Don't make me come find you. I know where you live. Be my guest. I'm not even there right now. Step 1 foot inside and I'll have you arrested for trespassing. My mom was so furious she kept cursing at me. Before hanging up, I said, oh, by the way, dear mother, let me tell you, your precious son is absolute trash who deserves to rot in jail. And no, my job doesn't come with free houses or cars, so stop dreaming. If you dare show up here, I'll tell every relative about your son getting cuckolded, and I'll announce to the whole world that he's a murderer. Don't mess with me. It wasn't until I returned from my business trip that I learned my sister-in-law and her boyfriend had stabbed my parents during an argument. My mother died instantly at the scene. My father became vegetative. I visited my sister-in-law in prison. Why do you hate me so much? Why do you always want me to stay in the room with the AC outdoor unit? Why do you always have it out for me and pick on me at every turn? I hate that you got to study so much and live so freely out there. I thought I married into a good family, but the moment I stepped through the door, I was expected to wash dishes, cook, and even wash the feet of my in-laws and husband. Why don't you have to do any of this, just because you're studying? I hate you. I truly despise you. I wish you were dead. After getting the answer I wanted, I left. I studied so hard because education was my family's ticket to financial stability. My brother dropped out early, and my parents made it clear my academic success would fund his future. I used to shoulder endless chores like her until exhaustion forced me to take a sick year off school. Losing my scholarship was ironically what freed me from household labor, stepping out of prison. The sunlight bathes the earth outside. It will brighten my days ahead too. Story 2. In a post-apocalyptic world, the heroine of the story, driven by a surge of kindness, secretly steals a life-saving potion to rescue a stranger. This act causes her sister, who was in desperate need of the antidote, to suffer immensely, ultimately turning into a zombie and being killed. Meanwhile, the gentle and seemingly innocent heroine gains both fame and adoration for her good deed. Becoming the darling of the group, confronted with accusations, Snow tearfully buries herself in the hero's embrace, her face flushed with tears. I just wanted to save someone. Is it wrong to be kind? It's just an antidote. I can compensate you with a new one. In her apparent distress, she cunningly pushes me into a horde of zombies when I'm not looking. When I open my eyes, I find myself back to the moment before Snow stole the potion. In this life, I use my seemingly useless abilities to turn the tables and crush her protagonist's halo, step by step. Life is just that. I'll compensate you with a new one in your next life. On the dark, blood-stained wasteland, zombies gnaw on fresh human flesh. The day I died was celebrated across the world. After much effort, I discovered who had stolen the potion years ago and, with a resolve to face death, I sought justice from Snow. By then, her past brave act had already made her a top researcher at the post-apocalyptic base. Even after the truth came out, people fiercely defended her, angrily rebuking me. Miss Snow is a researcher at the base. She has made such significant contributions to humanity. Why should she apologize to you, making such a fuss over a bottle of potion and seeking revenge? Is it necessary? Can't you have a broader perspective like Snow? What benefits are you trying to gain from her? I've seen many who exploit their relatives for profit. Snow, the true culprit, was fiercely protected by others. Facing the accusations, she looked extremely innocent, her almond eyes brimming with tears. Ella, whether you believe it or not, I didn't do it on purpose. I just wanted to save someone. Is it wrong to be kind? If I could go back, I would still save that child. I couldn't just watch him die. I had no other choice. I can compensate you for the antidote. I'll give you anything you want, as long as you can forgive me. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt, her nose turning red and her eyes moist with tears, which rolled down her soft cheeks like pearls off a broken string. As the protagonist of this post-apocalyptic story, she always portrayed herself as noble and pure. I sneered, my eyes filled with hatred as I shouted, compensate for the antidote. Will that bring my sister back to life? Is that child's life valuable? And my sister's is not. You know you climbed to where you are today by stealing my sister's life-saving medicine, yet you still play the innocent. Remembering the dark bloodstains in the basement, my hatred surged, and I trembled uncontrollably. Under my overwhelming condemnation, Snow forced a grim smile, her teeth biting into her tender lips. Before everyone, she suddenly bent her knees, attempting to kneel before me. Yes, it's all my fault. My desire to save people is to blame. Am I not cold-blooded enough for you? If it doesn't satisfy you, shall I kneel and kowtow to you? But before she could fully kneel, a domineering man by her side stopped her. This man, Rylan, the leader of the base and the strongest human with supernatural abilities in this post-apocalyptic decade, already shared a blissful and complete love with her. Rylan, radiating a cold aura, tenderly embraced the sobbing girl into his arms. Fool, being bullied and not asking brother for help. Why so stubborn? He gently patted her back and tenderly kissed the tears from Snow's cheeks, yet when he looked at me, it was as if he was looking at a corpse. With a detached superiority, he casually conjured a blaze of lightning in his palm. Have you caused enough trouble? Know when to stop. My woman, no one has the right to make her kneel. A sudden surge of purple lightning coursed through my body, and I could smell the searing flesh on me. My limbs were numb and immovable, the intense pain nearly shattering my sanity. I was defenseless, my powers weak, so very weak. Just as he was about to continue, Snow, sobbing in his arms, stopped him. Her delicate, beautiful fingers grabbed the hem of his shirt as she blinked her eyes coyly and said softly, Rylan, I don't want your hands to be stained with blood for my sake. I can't live under your protection forever. I need to learn to grow. You're right. I can't stay weak anymore. After saying this, she took a deep breath as if to muster courage, closed her eyes, and with trembling hands, pushed me hard towards the city wall. In an instant, I was overwhelmed by a horde of howling zombies. My flesh was torn and devoured bit by bit, and in a daze, I thought I saw my sister's figure appear. As death approached, cheers erupted from atop the city wall. It was in this moment I realized that this world was a post-apocalyptic romance, and Rylan and Snow were the protagonists of the story. The dark and mad version of me was just a minor villain destined to die in their legendary tale. Naturally, the the villain's death at the hands of the heroes was cause for universal celebration. Today is March 21st of the new era, year 1:60 a.m. The smell of dust filled the dim basement, and the base's time announcement woke me from unconsciousness. Rubbing my throbbing temples, I abruptly sat up from the ground. Next to me on the narrow cot, a frail figure was gasping weakly, "Sister, it hurts so much." The 5-year-old girl looked pale and bluish, her cheeks hollow, her consciousness seeming blurred. I watched this scene in a daze, feeling somewhat surreal. My sister, didn't she die 10 years ago? The buzzing of the walkie-talkie snapped me back to reality, and I looked down to check it. A brief message was recorded: Mission Hall. Retrieve antidote, retrieve the antidote. The agony of being torn apart by zombies just before dying was still haunting me, sending chills through me. I immediately realized that I had been reborn 10 years earlier, back to that nightmarish point in time. Today, the female lead Snow would misuse her authority to steal my antidote to save a stranger. Today, my sister would become a zombie and be mercilessly killed due to the loss of the antidote. Luna, hang in there. Wait for your sister to come back. I hugged my sister tightly and kissed her feverish forehead. Then, without bothering to dress properly, I rushed out of the basement as fast as I could. It was 6:00 a.m., and there was still time. I had to get that antidote. At 6:40 a.m., breathless, I rushed to the entrance of the mission hall. To my surprise, I saw a petite and delicate figure sneaking in, dressed in a simple lab coat, her pale face filled with anxiety. With almond-shaped eyes beneath crescent eyebrows and a baby-fat cheek with a shallow dimple, she looked like a naive beauty. It was Snow. She confidently moved towards the hall's safe, her fingers trembling nervously as she entered the password. Please, please, dear God, let the medicine not be taken by anyone else. That little boy is so pitiful. I must save him. Hearing this, my heart filled with hatred surged uncontrollably, and I instinctively gripped the long knife in my sleeve. Wanting to rush in, no, it wasn't time yet. At the last moment, I restrained myself and instead picked up a pebble from the roadside and threw it hard at the windowsill. The sharp alarm rang out, and Snow, like a startled innocent rabbit, took a few steps back. When the person in charge sleepily ran out, she quickly pretended to look normal again. Researcher Snow, what brings you here so early? The person in charge didn't suspect she was there to steal. Thinking there was some urgent task at the research institute, Snow, not good at lying but remembering her promise to help a mother and son get the antidote, clenched her fists and silently cheered herself on. Good morning, Director. The research institute needs to use the antidote stored here. Just one bottle. I didn't bring the official request document. Give me a break this time. I'll make it up on my next visit, she said with a harmless smile, her lips curving slightly in the silent hall. In the post-apocalyptic base, the research institute wielded significant authority. The person in charge nodded and turned to open the safe. However, his brow furrowed when he retrieved the only bottle of pale green potion inside. Researcher Snow, we've received only one bottle of this potion today, he said. According to the registry, it's owned by Ella, a Class C citizen of the base. Even if you have a directive, you can't transfer it. Upon hearing she couldn't obtain it, Snow's eyes widened in shock, misty, and on the verge of tears. She lowered her head sadly, her slender fingers nervously twisting the hem of her garment. But, Director, please, I'm begging you, the Research Institute needs it for a very important purpose. If we delay, no one can afford the consequences. Maybe Ella isn't in a hurry to use it. I can replace the potion for you tomorrow. She won't notice. Moved by her earnest pleas, the director finally, though reluctantly, handed her the potion. All right, but remember, hello, I'm here to pick up the potion. At that critical moment, I stepped into the hall, interrupting their conversation. The pale green liquid in the transparent glass bottle swayed as it landed in my hands. Snow gasped softly and frowned slightly in irritation. Who are you? Oh, I'm Ella. I presented my identification, signed the registry, and left without a backward glance. The process was smooth and decisive. Snow chased after me, grabbing the corner of my shirt with her delicate hand, her cheeks turning red as she stammered, trying to use the same excuses she had on the director, our institute. The cold blade of a knife suddenly dropped. Snow recoiled, her face pale and her eyes brimming with tears when she met my fierce gaze. To tell you the truth, she said, there's a child in the base who's been bitten by a zombie. I wanted your potion, to save him. She held her head high as she spoke, as if she were a noble savior. You see, even in a world full of deceit, Snow, the stereotypical gentle and sweet protagonist, remains as pristine as a sheet of white paper. She always goes out of her way to help others at any cost. But, what does that have to do with me? Get lost. I walked past her with an expressionless face, suppressing the intense urge to lash out, and quickly left, the moment I pushed open the door. My heart nearly leapt to my throat, dreading to witness the gruesome scene from a past life. Fortunately, it wasn't to be. My sister Luna was still lying quietly on her clean little bed. Her breath was shallow. She barely managed to open her eyes when she heard me. "Sister, I'm back." "Luna, it's okay now." I held her frail body in my arms and injected the potion into her carotid artery. Visibly, the ashen pallor on her tiny face began to fade. Luna's breathing steadied and she slowly drifted into a deep sleep. The antibodies in the potion were devouring the zombie virus in her body, and soon, she would recover. Lying in my arms, the sister I had lost for 10 years still felt somewhat unreal. In the dim light, I leaned down to touch my face to her forehead, quietly feeling her warm breath. I had succeeded. Pain seared through my shoulder. Only then did I realize that my wound had reopened, the blood soaking my clothes. But this pain was nothing compared to being devoured by a horde of zombies because of Snow's betrayal in a previous life. This time, I wanted to see how things would unfold without my potion paving the way. How can Snow climb step by step to the pinnacle of life? Having been reborn, I must become stronger at all costs. I need to protect Luna, whether it's Snow or Rylan. I must eliminate them. I don't want to peacefully seek justice. I want to avenge Luna, and avenge myself who died unjustly. Knock. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there's an urgent knocking from outside the basement. I carefully tuck my sleeping sister back into bed, making sure the covers are snug, before I get up with a furrowed brow to answer the door. Is something the matter? The light in the basement is dim, but the silhouettes of 3 people in the narrow hallway are clearly visible. "Miss Ella, I beg you to save my child. He's still so young. He will truly die if you don't share the medicine. Should I kneel before you? Please have mercy on us." Mother and son, a strange woman, holding a child of about 7 or 8 years old, kneels rigidly on the ground, looking up at me with tears streaming down her face. Behind them stands Snow. Clearly, she brought this mother and son, bitten by zombies, to my door. "Ella, this is a precious life. How can you bear it? I'm a researcher at the base. Consider this medicine as a debt I owe you." "Okay, I'll compensate you in a few days. How about 2 bottles? Ella, please hand it over. You're not that cold-hearted, right?" In her urgency, her voice grows loud, attracting the attention of others in the underground living area. I frown and raise my hand to close the iron door, worried that my sleeping sister might be disturbed. Snow's words, both sincere and moving, sway the onlookers, but my heart remains unmoved. I have only 1 bottle of medicine, a bottle meant to save my sister. I owe no one, playing moral blackmail with me. She's too naive. The narrow corridor is filled with a dense murmur of discussions, with some boldly speaking up for Snow. "Give her the medicine. The researcher Snow said she would compensate you. The young girl is begging so desperately. It would be wrong not to help now. Don't be too indifferent. Everyone faces tough times." The crowd's overlapping voices leave me no chance to refuse. I raise an eyebrow, clear my throat, and pull out the empty medicine bottle from my space, throwing it directly at Snow. "Sorry, I am that cold-hearted. The medicine has been used. Instead of wasting time here, you'd better look elsewhere." Snow is caught off guard and fails to catch it, the thin glass bottle hitting the ground with a crisp sound. It's indeed empty, not a drop left. Seeing this, the woman beside her holding the child breaks down. "Bitch, you actually used the medicine. This was the medicine researcher Snow promised to get me. You damned thief. Give it back to me. You killed my child. I'll kill you." The woman throws the unconscious child in a corner, her eyes filled with rage as she screams and rushes toward me. But suddenly, the unexpected happens. The child, like a fish struggling on the brink of death, arches and trembles, convulses a few times, then suddenly gets up. He fiercely leaps onto the woman's back, biting through her throat. He. The onlookers, mocking and jeering, fail to escape and are bitten, one by one transforming. The growls echo through the dim, cramped basement, turning the corridor into a bloody inferno. The alarm sounds, and the base's guard team enters with guns drawn. As I'm escorted away by the guards, Snow suddenly raises her beautiful eyes to look at me, her gaze sharp with endless disappointment. She tilts her delicate chin up, standing on a moral high ground to judge and condemn me. they were killed by you. If you had initially agreed to use the medicine to save that child, nothing will happen. Are you satisfied now?" After she spoke, she glanced at me disdainfully like a proud and pure white swan and left. My gaze lingered on the slender curve of her neck as she walked away. So fragile, a gentle squeeze could break it. Unfortunately, I can't kill her yet. After dying in my previous life, I didn't immediately reincarnate. Instead, I wandered the apocalyptic ruins as a soul for a few more years. The author's grand finale only covered up to the 10th year of the apocalypse, where the male and female leads established the strongest human base. However, by the 13th year of the apocalypse, I witnessed the human species reaching its historical end. In this desperate struggle against the zombies, humanity was utterly defeated. The moment Snow died at the hands of the zombies, the whole world collapsed into nothingness, the timeline reset, and the plot returned to a critical moment in the protagonist's growth, the stealing of a medicine to save someone. Coincidentally, I was reborn at the same moment, retaining my memories. If Snow's death is crucial, then killing her now would surely cause a collapse in the space-time continuum. All of this is predicated on the assumption that Snow is the protagonist. What if I could sever all her opportunities? Would that break her protagonist's halo? At that point, would I be able to kill her to avenge Luna and myself? For hours after taking the medicine, the zombie virus inside Luna was completely eradicated. "Sister, you're back." She slowly woke up and climbed out of bed, clinging to my arm and acting coquettishly. Luna just turned 5 this year, her large watery eyes set in a tiny face, her eyebrows curved, making her look very delicate and adorable. Technically, Luna isn't my sister by blood. She's an orphan I found on the road during the apocalypse. I encountered her in a supermarket, where she timidly peered at me from behind a corner shelf, so I took her with me, and she became Luna. "Luna, are you hungry? Come eat some noodles." I raised my hand to ruffle her soft short hair and kissed her forehead. On the table was a freshly made bowl of instant noodles, to which I had added water, boiled an egg, and put in some sausage, just before serving. I stuffed several slices of beef into it to nourish the child. As a space manipulator, I never lacked supplies. Luna obediently held the bowl, picked up some noodles and an egg with her chopsticks, blew on them, and then held them up to my mouth. "Sister, eat." "Okay." I propped my cheek with my hand, smiling quietly as I watched her eat, occasionally accepting her feeding, but thinking about the plan ahead. A tinge of sourness uncontrollably surged in my heart. Luna can't stay with me. She must leave. If I remain weak and confined, I won't have the strength to protect her in the apocalypse. If I am determined to become stronger and seek revenge, countless dangers will inevitably come my way in the future, and Luna, being my weakness, would certainly become a target for my enemies. I can't bear the pain of losing her again, so I have to make a choice. In my past life, while searching for the medicine, I accidentally found the whereabouts of Luna's biological parents. The couple had unfortunately been separated from their daughter during their escape and later settled in a Western base, entering the military's upper echelons. They have been desperately searching for their child for 10 years, never giving up. I believe Luna would be 100 times safer with them than with me. The small basement was very quiet, only the intermittent sound of the little girl slurping noodles. "Luna, how about I send you back to your mom and dad?" I turned my head away from the last roll of noodles in the bowl and suddenly spoke. Unexpectedly, Luna remained calm throughout and did not lose control as I had imagined. She stubbornly stuffed the noodles into my mouth, then with a serious expression on her tender white face, she nodded. "Okay, Luna, A pair of thin little hands cupped my face, clumsily wiping the cold tears from my cheeks. "I don't want to be a burden to you, sister. I'll wait for you at the Western base." "Sister, you have to come pick me up." I was slightly taken aback, but seeing Luna's tired eyes, I held back my words. The farewell was too calm, eerily calm. After she fell asleep, I hugged the child in my arms tightly and gently kissed her forehead. The long night that followed was sleepless. The Western base. But I hadn't told her that her parents were at the Western base. Early the next day before dawn, I took Luna to the headquarters of the base. Over the past few days, military forces from the 4 major bases, North, South, East, and West, had gathered to exchange deployment experiences. Upon learning Luna's identity, the people from the Western base immediately agreed to ensure her safe departure. I playfully winked at her as we said goodbye, and secretly slipped a small backpack into her arms filled with her favorite snacks, canned fruits, canned meats, and milk drinks. It was only after the military vehicle completely left through the gates of the northern base that I turned and hurried towards the trading market. Today, something very important was going to happen. The trading market at the northern base was vast, where the currency was mission points, of course. Bartering was also acceptable for transactions, food, drinking water, daily necessities, and clothing made up the majority of the goods here, while medicines and weapons were extremely scarce. Luxuries like jewelry, furniture, antiques, and cosmetics were considered useless trash that nobody cared about. At this moment, however, this market concealed the heroine's golden opportunity. In her previous life, Snow had managed to become a top-level researcher not just because of her kindness and sweetness. Her two biggest advantages were her evolved ability partner, Rylan, and a space jade pendant she obtained in exchange for 2 bags of instant noodles. Having a storage space was like having a spatial ability, and even more rare was the spring inside it that could dilute the zombie virus. This was a public secret, known to all. The base's research institute saw Snow as a savior, hoping she could use the spring to create a real antidote to end the apocalypse. However, even in the 13th year, humanity was still fighting zombies on the wasteland. She had not succeeded. Snow had obtained the jade pendant at the trading market of the northern base. Coincidentally, on the day the 4 bases ended their exchanges, I disguised myself and made an effort to blend into the bustling market. The daily transaction rate here was high, and many people covered their identities somewhat to avoid being targeted for robbery or worse. I mingled in the crowd, carefully searching for the jade pendant I had once seen around Snow's neck. I occasionally stopped at various stalls, occasionally spending a few points on some food to make my purpose less obvious. As for Snow buying the jade pendant before me, that wouldn't happen, because I had submitted a complaint to the Research Institute overnight, accusing her of abusing her authority by attempting to use medication privately and leaking information about the recipients. The current head of the Research Institute was famously conservative and followed pre-apocalypse management practices with strict rules, so Snow was called in for an inquiry early in the morning and wouldn't be out for half a day. This wool sweater is of excellent quality, just 10 points. Beef cans with 3 more years of shelf life, 3 points each. Super affordable multigrain buns, 1 point for 3. I walked several rounds in the trading market. Many were selling, but I still found nothing. Could it be that only the heroine could obtain this golden opportunity? No, I didn't believe that. Suppressing the irritation inside, I walked more meticulously through the market, not missing any chance. Check out this ancestral jewelry jade pendant, very affordable. Suddenly, a weak and fleeting hawker's call caught my attention. I abruptly stopped, sharply focusing my gaze on an inconspicuous corner stall. There it was, the stallholder. A frail 60-year-old man named Mountain, clearly hadn't eaten for days and was dizzy with hunger. He was desperately guarding a few simple pieces of jewelry on a red cloth, occasionally calling out weakly, but everyone hurried past, not sparing a glance at these junk items. Sir, take a look at our family's ancestral jewelry jade pendants, all genuine, not expensive, just a few points, or you can give some food or drink. Mountain tried to muster a pleasing smile, repeatedly wiping his hands on his tattered clothes, appearing somewhat restrained. Seeing me squatting in front of the stall picking and choosing without saying a word, he miserably kept lowering the price. Finally, he said I could take everything if I just gave him 3 packs of instant noodles, a piece of white jade pendant, a jade ring, and a pill inside a box. He had gotten older and recently injured his leg, temporarily unable to take on missions. Facing the grim reality that his granddaughter might starve, he reluctantly decided to sell the family heirlooms he had taken when they fled. However, for 3 consecutive days, no one even showed interest. I listened attentively as Mountain shared his difficulties, and eventually, I asked him to gather everything on the red cloth. I'll take all of these, but the price for 3 packets of instant noodles isn't quite right. What about 2 packets then, boss? I really can't go any lower, he pleaded, seemingly thinking I was still haggling, and bowed deeply in a humble manner. I quickly reached out to support him and suggested we go to his home to discuss the deal properly. Mountain's home was a mere 4 square meters large basement. A worn bed was placed against the wall where a girl, even younger than Luna, sat quietly lost in her thoughts. The child looked only 2 or 3 years old, frail and somewhat slow in her reactions, but her eyes were as bright and round as my sister's. This reminded me of Luna, and I wondered if she was eating well with the army. Seeing my genuine interest in trading made Mountain very happy. He patted the dust off the end of the bed to offer me a seat. I took the red cloth from his hands and then fetched 3 boxes of instant noodles from my storage. This was followed by 5 bags of rice, 2 bags of flour, 3 boxes of bottled water, 10 cans of nutritional milk powder, and 2 packs of sausages. Finally, I transferred the last 200 points from my card to his. Mountain was stunned, having never seen so many supplies since the apocalypse began. 1 point could buy 3 coarse grain buns, so 200 points equaled 600 buns, plus rice, noodles, flour. These supplies, if used sparingly, were enough to feed him and his granddaughter for a whole year, sometimes even decently. His eyes widened, and his thin hands trembled slightly as he looked at me in disbelief. Sir, is all this really for me? Yes, your items are worth this much. The jade pendant alone was a priceless treasure, but the saying that a man is not guilty but bears the guilt of possessing a jade remains unchanged through the ages, so I decided not to reveal the truth to him. Giving him too many supplies at once was not safe. A defenseless old man could easily become a target. I would find a way to continue supporting the grandfather and granddaughter later, otherwise I wouldn't feel right about acquiring their family treasure at a low price. Mountain took several deep breaths, then suddenly knelt down with a thump. Thank you, benefactor, thank you. Seeing that he was about to bow his head in gratitude, I quickly knelt down to help him up. After comforting him and slipping some candy into his granddaughter's hand, I hurriedly left, fearing he might chase after me to express his thanks again. Unexpectedly, when I returned to the market, I ran into Snow. She was wearing a lab coat, rushing over with her soft hair dampened by a light sweat, sticking to her fair forehead. It was clear she was very anxious, frantically questioning nearby vendors. I hid behind an inconspicuous building, quietly observing her actions. Hello, have you seen an old man named Mountain? He was selling a white jade pendant here. If you see him, please contact me. This is really important to me. After repeated inquiries with no success, Snow couldn't help but sniffle. Her eyelashes drooping, her aura diminished, she eventually just squatted at Mountain's former stall, waiting like a hunter. Seeing this, I frowned. In the past life, Snow had acquired the jade pendant casually while browsing. There was no way she could know this information in this life. I adjusted my hat to cover myself more and walked past her, hearing her mutter to herself. Could that dream have been false? I clearly dreamed I bought a space jade pendant here. How could it? Snow blinked, tilting her head, her expression slightly confused and puzzled. Hearing this, I felt relieved and quickly left the market to return to the basement. Thankfully, I almost thought she had been reborn too. I cradled the seemingly ordinary white jade pendant in my palm. The superpower settings in this book are rather unusual. After the apocalypse broke out, most people were infected by the virus and turned into mindless zombies. However, a fortunate few broke free from their shackles, unlocked their genetic potential, and evolved various superpowers. Superpowers are not ranked. They depend entirely on the individual's aptitude and application. My ability is spatial manipulation. It's a power without offensive capabilities, unappetizing to utilize yet too valuable to discard. A true chicken rib. In the early days of the apocalypse, I could still blend into various teams with my spatial ability to scavenge for supplies, which was quite in demand. But as the apocalypse progressed and the base developed heavy-duty vehicles, people like me with such abilities became undesirable and were treated like trash, because I was considered trash. In my previous life, Snow and Rylan could trample over me without consequence. However, after being reborn, I recalled a rumor that circulated among the superpowered community in the later stages of the apocalypse, that superpowers could evolve by devouring others. What would they devour? How would the powers evolve? No one knew, and since no one had ever seen it happen, it was largely ignored. But I knew the rumor was true. I had seen an evolved superpower user and, coincidentally, died at his hands. Rylan originally possessed the power of lightning, but later he evolved to control both lightning and fire. No one knew exactly what had happened to him or what he had devoured. But once, while on a mission in City H with my team, I discovered a meteorite fireball radiating with lightning. We brought the meteorite back to base, and then it disappeared without a trace. As one of the few who knew about it, I speculated that Rylan had devoured it to evolve. Could I, too, evolve by devouring the spatial properties of this jade pendant? Now, my worry was whether the spirit spring inside the pendant would disappear. I used the only bed in the basement to barricade the door and then curled up in the corner. The small room emitted a faint dampness, and a heavy scent of dust filled my nostrils. After hesitating for a while, I still gripped the jade pendant and slowly closed my eyes. Time trickled away, and the base's time broadcast was blocked from my senses. I didn't have many friends in the base, and no one but Luna would come looking for me, so when I opened my eyes again, I felt somewhat lost. Today is March 25th, year 1 of the new era, 5 a.m., announced the broadcast, just as it resumed. Surprisingly, 3 days and nights had passed unknowingly. A tremendous hunger panged from my stomach. Not having eaten for days, my blood sugar was low, and I felt weak. Licking my dry, cracked lips, I took out a bottle of mineral water and a loaf of wheat bread from my space and devoured the meal. It wasn't tasty, but it was filling. Gradually, strength returned to my limbs, and my consciousness cleared. Pressing against my slightly numb and sore feet, I sensed a change in my spatial ability. The space and spirit spring inside the white jade pendant had disappeared, replaced by a small pool of spring water in the corner of my space. The exact effects of the spirit water were unknown. In my previous life, it had only been held by Snow, and no one else had touched it. She had claimed it could greatly dilute the zombie virus. Thinking this, I took about 500 test tubes from the corner of my space and filled each with the spirit water. I needed to find a way to deliver the water to the research institute without exposing myself, as it might be useful for developing an antidote for the zombie virus. The base area of my original space was still 10,000 square meters, about the size of a school playground. In the apocalypse, no one easily reveals their true capabilities, but I had a feeling my space was still much larger than most. Even in the later stages, I still had a role to play in large missions at the base. But this was still not enough. With only this level of ability, Rylan could kill me as easily as killing an ant. To survive and seek revenge in the apocalypse, I needed offensive capabilities. I closed my eyes and felt carefully for a long time but still could not determine the direction in which my spatial ability might evolve. If that was the case, I would have to figure it out slowly through real combat. Sighing with some regret, I staggered up from the corner, intending to move the bed blocking the door, but one leg of the bed was tightly wedged in the door gap, and no matter how I tried, I couldn't move it. After shaking it for a long time to no avail, just as I was about to fetch tools to break the bed leg, the whole bed suddenly loosened with a snap. Crack, crack, crack. As I stared in stunned silence, the solid bed suddenly collapsed into a chaotic heap on the floor. The foot of the bed, as if forcibly yanked off, left the frame's wooden boards twisted and broken irregularly. Holding my breath, I crouched down to closely examine the sharp wooden splinters where it had snapped. This bed had been torn apart, to confirm the suspicion nagging at me. I casually picked up a metal bucket filled with water nearby and gradually activated my special ability. With a loud clang, the sturdy metal bucket split into 2 halves, forcefully torn apart. After a brief investigation, I found traces of spatial abilities still lingering on it. Clutching my fists tightly, I suddenly found my breathing growing rapid. Fearing that my guess might be wrong, I spared no effort in tampering with every object in the basement. Only when the room was in complete disarray and no more objects left to destroy, did I dare to confirm the evolution of my ability, Rend, creating spatial rifts to tear apart entities within the same space. The extent of its destructive power depended on the user's skill and aptitude. It was a formidable offensive ability. Ever since my rebirth, the anxiety that had been hanging over me slowly subsided, and I took a deep breath of relief. Today is March 25th, year 1 of the new era, 8 a.m. The mechanical voice of the base echoed around me as people began to stir outside the basement, recalling an event from my past life that was about to happen. I quickly washed up and hurried out. After delivering the spirit water to the research institute using a black plate truck found in the trading market, I rushed to the mission hall. Today, the hall was bustling, even more crowded than usual due to the base issuing a high-level S-class mission to hunt a mutated willow tree in H City. The very place struck by a meteorite with thunderous and fiery properties. This time, I planned to reach the site first and get my hands on the meteorite before anyone else. Even if I didn't need it myself, I couldn't let Rylan have it. With Rylan's already powerful electrokinetic abilities, any gain for him meant a disadvantage for me, making it harder to take him and Snow down later. After receiving and carefully filling out the mission card, I passed the interview with the supervisor and successfully joined the team. However, it was only after boarding the military truck that I realized several researchers in white lab coats were seated in the front row, among them Snow, curiously looking around with her cheeks slightly puffed. Indeed, this was the butterfly effect from my rebirth. In my previous life, Snow, having risen to a senior researcher after saving lives, wouldn't need to participate in such missions, yet here she was. I hesitated, contemplating switching vehicles, but the doors were promptly shut by the guard team. Helplessly, I found a seat far from her. The next second, Snow caught sight of me with her beautiful, glistening eyes, nervously fidgeting with her dainty, pale pink fingertips. Her unusual demeanor unexpectedly drew everyone's attention. "What's wrong, Snow?" "It's nothing. Just that I ran into the sister who took the medicine I wanted to use to save someone last time," Snow stuttered, her long eyelashes trembling, her fair little face filled with sadness. "What did you say? Was it that selfish person who reported you to the dean and got you scolded?" The man sitting next to Snow, Simon, a fellow mid-level researcher, adjusted his glasses and looked at me indignantly. Hearing this, the other researchers and ability users in the vehicle instantly showed contempt. The chatty girl next to me also fell silent and subtly moved a few centimeters away from me. In just a few words, I had become a pariah, shunned by all. I shifted my legs and settled into a more comfortable position to rest with my eyes closed. "Oh no, I didn't mean that. Sister Ella probably didn't do it on purpose." Snow, seemingly embarrassed about getting me scolded, nervously tried to defend me. As expected, this only increased everyone's disdain for me. "Snow, you're too kind, and that's why you're bullied by such shameless people." "Yeah, the medicine was developed by our institute. Why shouldn't she give it to you?" "Poor Snow, just trying to save someone and yet she gets reported. How can such trash even pass the interview to join the mission?" The people from the institute were united in their hostility, each person protecting Snow without lowering their voices, clearly intending for me to hear. I raised an eyebrow without opening my eyes, appearing calm on the surface, but my fingertips hidden in my sleeves twitched slightly. In a post-apocalyptic world, researchers are a rare breed, and they represent humanity's only hope for defeating the zombie virus. They are also the primary individuals to be safeguarded during the S-level mission in H-City. Technically, I shouldn't interfere with them, but a little mischief is still permissible. How come my research suit is torn? Mine too. It was fine when I left the house. Ah, my hair. The military truck took nearly half a month to arrive, and everyone was cautious as we entered H-City. Before the apocalypse, H-City was a provincial capital with a transient population of nearly 20 million, making it extremely dangerous. According to the base's detection instruments, a 10-meter-tall mutated willow tree appeared in the city center 2 weeks ago. The researchers believe that this anomaly is a crucial signal, prompting the mission. Participants were divided into 5 squads, each approaching from different areas. I huddled in a corner with others, examining the map of H-City and trying to recall the safe routes from my past life. I realized that the safe route wasn't in this district at all. At that moment, the truck stopped at a fork in the road, apparently facing a dilemma. The head of the escort team came back to explain the situation, indicating that there were 2 possible paths ahead. Route A was the shortest, taking about 3 days to the city center but had a high concentration of zombies. Route B was longer, taking around 5 days but avoided dense zombie areas and was safer. After much discussion, the researchers decided to take the safer Route B. "We can't take Route B." Seeing no opposition, I reluctantly stood up. The captain of the guard was surprised but paused and looked at me quizzically. "What's up?" "The population density marked on the map is based on pre-apocalyptic models, but it's been a year since then. Taking Route B, we'll have to stay in Shuanglin district, where there are no suitable buildings for shelter, and it's fraught with danger." Although I had never been to this region, I had heard about the situation in H-City several times in my past life. Known danger zones included Shuanglin district, where a minor zombie outbreak had occurred. I spread out the map to analyze the pros and cons of the areas and looked up only to find that no one was paying attention to my opinion. Everyone was busy with their things, occasionally laughing and creating a harmonious atmosphere. Simon, a researcher who had previously defended Snow, scoffed and said disdainfully, "When it's time for a mission, the researchers have the deciding power, not you. We've discussed both routes, and Route B is much safer. Can you take responsibility if something goes wrong on Route A?" "Oh, then let's do as you say." I sat back down without changing my expression, started marking the map, and didn't argue further. It's hard to persuade a doomed soul, and mercy won't help those who refuse to help themselves. The location where the meteor fell was not far from the mutated willow tree in the city center. The military truck was efficient, but if I got off now, I would be too late to reach the meteor site. However, I needed to find an escape route in advance, just in case. I couldn't get wiped out along with them, could I? Seeing me thwarted, everyone secretly laughed. Unaware that death was stealthily approaching, indeed, 2 days later, the military truck reached Shuanglin district. After a search, the escort team found no safe shelters nearby, so we stationed ourselves in a large shopping mall. The observant captain of the guard gave me a solemn look. The mall's doors and windows were shattered, shelves that once held goods had collapsed, and trash was strewn everywhere, creating a mess. After the blood-red sunset sank, the darkness flickered with a sinister, bloodthirsty glow. After discussing, the squad decided to rest in the food section. Everyone sat on the floor and ate compressed biscuits simply. As long as one participated in the mission, the base would provide basic meals daily. I found a corner with a broad view and easy escape routes and absent-mindedly sipped mineral water. Something was off. It was too quiet here. Beep 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 beep. In the silence, a sudden piercing car alarm sounded from outside the building. Everyone eating quietly froze, anxiously staring in the direction of the battered door. But after a long wait with no further disturbances, everyone slowly relaxed their guard. Maybe it's just the wind. The researchers said there are no zombies here. Scared of what? I muttered to myself. After my spatial abilities evolved, my perception had slightly improved as well. When the alarm ceased, the terrifying figures lurking in the dark finally began to emerge in countless numbers. The zombies are coming. I pulled a long sword from the space, stepped out from the corner, and issued a cold warning. This sword, with a 1-meter hilt and a 1.5-meter double-edged blade, was the cold weapon that suited me best after 10 years of apocalypse. The previously relaxed atmosphere in the hall instantly froze. Most people frowned, looking at me, puzzled. Simon sneered, unconvinced. You say there are zombies and then there. His words were cut off as the mall doors suddenly crashed to the ground. In the creepy twilight, a group of zombies with rotting, pus-oozing faces and tattered bodies staggered closer. The howling grew louder, and from the unseen darkness, countless zombies surged toward us like a flood. The zombie tide had erupted. The guards reacted the quickest, grabbing weapons to shield the researchers and ordering a retreat, according to the rules. Aside from the guards, every person with abilities was responsible for protecting a researcher. As I swung my long sword, slicing down the approaching zombies, I also used my spatial abilities to tear off the heads of nearby zombies. 1, 2, 3. Initially, I could only tear off one zombie's neck at a time, but as the tide grew denser and the zombies, driven mad by the scent of flesh, lunged in a frenzy, more and more people fell. I was forced to overuse my spatial abilities, tearing 2, 3, 4 at a time. Eventually, I began to numbly kill. The power of my abilities far surpassed that of any cold weapon. Headless zombies fell in droves around me, creating a rather spectacular scene. Fortunately, the mall's doors were not very large, limiting the number of zombies that could pour in at once. With several ability users focusing their attacks, we managed to catch our breath, just as I was about to retreat through the back door. A figure in a white lab coat was pushed into my arms. This delicate and boneless person clutched nervously at my clothes. Unsurprisingly, it was Snow. Without a word, the captain of the guard entrusted her to me and then went back into the mall to rescue others. His bravery left me no choice but to agree. After all, if the female lead died now, the world would collapse, and fate would restart. A real hassle. However, I had a nagging feeling that ever since absorbing the jade pendant, the force compelling me to protect her seemed somewhat diminished. It seemed my earlier guess was right. If I could destroy all of Snow's chances, her protagonist's halo would completely disappear. Clutching my sword, I let Snow follow behind as I searched for a temporary shelter. Fortunately, before my abilities were completely drained, I spotted a bank at a street corner. The bank had multiple security doors, which should hold off the zombies. Yet, just as I was about to completely shake off the zombie horde, the person behind suddenly grabbed my arm. Ella, please don't go, save them, Snow pleaded, looking up at me with tearful eyes and biting her lip pitifully. Her sudden tug almost made me stumble into an oncoming zombie. Despite her confusion, she persistently blocked my way. They spoke out of turn earlier and offended you. I apologize on their behalf. With great power comes great responsibility. If you don't save them, they will really die. She peeked towards the mall direction, tears streaming down her face. Delayed by this, the massive horde of zombies surged closer again. The howling intensified, yet I stopped, standing still, a rotting hand, barely more than a palm, reached out and fiercely grabbed Snow's long, dark hair. She shuddered with fear and, momentarily forgetting to cry, screamed desperately clinging to my waist. "Sister, do something quickly. Are you still spouting nonsense? What? Her voice trembled, too shaken to speak clearly. As she was about to be dragged away, I swiftly raised my blade, now coated with a sticky fluid, and cut off her hair. The next second, the zombie's head was brutally torn apart, black blood splattered, instantly smearing her face. Some even splashed into her incessantly chattering mouth. "Either turn back and save them yourself or shut your mouth." Seeing Snow's face turn pale as she bent over to vomit continuously, I grabbed her by the collar and dragged her back to the entrance of the bank. I threw a small bomb from my space, instantly clearing a small area around us. I took the opportunity to squeeze through the gate and calmly searched for the hidden switch of the second security door in a corner 3 meters away. The zombies, blocked outside the gate, growled, their mouths oozing dark, foul-smelling pus. After being dragged in, Snow collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, still in shock. Just as the security door was slowly descending, she looked up towards the street corner, her eyes suddenly lighting up astonishingly. "Simon, we're here," she shouted excitedly, attracting more and more zombies. I also saw a group of people frantically running towards us, including some researchers and individuals with special abilities. But with 20 seconds until the security door fully closed, and the group still 80 meters away from the bank and having to pass through a horde of zombies, they had no chance of making it. "No, we can't close the door, they're not inside yet." Snow threw herself forward, desperately guarding the switch, already extremely drained from using my abilities. I blacked out from her forceful pushing and fell to the ground. My forearm scraped against an exposed steel bar, spreading the smell of blood. The zombies lingering outside the bank door grew even more excited, twisting their bodies, trying to squeeze through the gate. Shivering, I picked up a broadsword and slowly pushed back a few stragglers. Damn it, if it weren't for the heroine's halo, I'd have to literally tear Snow apart limb from limb. I really am starting to have the makings of a villain. Why can't it stop? How could this happen? Seeing the security door continuously descending, Snow stomped her feet in urgency. "It's a one-way device. Once activated, it can't be stopped," I explained coolly while bandaging my wound. "No, I can't leave them behind." With 10 seconds left, less than a meter gap remained in the security door. Snow lay on the ground, waving her small hands trying to lift the heavy door. Finding it ineffective, she helplessly hugged her knees and sobbed, tears making her small face even more delicate and lovely. I squinted my eyes, staring at her with a malicious smile. "Then go out and die with them. Go on, you can distract the zombies and buy them some time, right? Go out. Why aren't you speaking? Aren't you supposed to be great and kind? Why hesitate to sacrifice yourself?" Snow, not good at arguing, just quietly held her knees and sobbed. The tears that fell cleaned the blood from her face, revealing her delicate and pretty features. Just then, a low male voice came from the second-floor corridor of the bank. "Enough, let it be." Familiar words. A familiar condescending tone. Sure enough, the next second Rylan appeared from the darkness, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his eyelids drooped lazily, his expression indifferent, surrounded by flickering purple lightning. "Kill him, turn him into a human pig, throw him to the zombies." I clenched my teeth hard, desperately suppressing the surge of murderous intent inside me. Clearly, he had been standing there for a long time, and I had not sensed him at all. Although my powers were currently depleted, I knew that Rylan was still stronger than me. After all, I had only recently evolved my tearing ability, while he had been mastering lightning for a year. The objective gap caused by these factors was hard to close in the short term, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. Want to play the game of a strong woman and a stronger man? Get lost. Are you bullying a kid? Rylan squatted in front of me, blowing smoke in my face. His expression willful and his eyes barely visible. He had just witnessed me using my spatial ability to strangle zombies, and it seemed he found such a woman interesting. As we locked eyes closely, neither of us showed weakness, and a raw fierceness and murderous intent burst forth silently between us. It's too similar. Humans don't like others who resemble themselves too much. Before I could push him away, Rylan straightened up on his own, reverting to his unapproachable demeanor, yet he didn't leave. Instead, he seemed to casually kick the girl next to him who was crying her eyes out. Snow looked up as if sensing something, her large, dewy eyes wide open, with her pale and flushed little face tilted upward. She innocently gazed at the tall, indifferent man before her. I knew Rylan was a sucker for this sort of thing. He was naturally cold-blooded and lacked empathy, which made him find the kindness and purity that this girl maintained in a post-apocalyptic world incredible. At first, it piqued his interest, then his protective instincts kicked in, and eventually, he fell for her. "Come on, I'll take care of your meal," Rylan said as he pulled her up from the ground, then let out a small tisk upon noticing she was choked by smoke and extinguished his cigarette butt. "Let go of me, I won't go with you." Snow had never been embraced by a man before. Her face turned bright red as she struggled weakly. She looked at him warily yet timidly. Like a little kitten whose fur had been ruffled, her eyes glistening and moist. Watching this scene, I stood up, leaning on my saber, and silently ridiculed them in my mind. What a pair of fools. The second floor of the bank was an intermediate level. Not only Rylan but also his elite squad, Hunt Winter, occupied this space. He was affiliated with the senior forces of the base, and each member of his team possessed formidable abilities. It seemed that Hunt Winter was the secret trump card sent by the base for this S-class mission. Currently, my drained abilities had not yet recovered, my forearm was injured, my physical strength was waning, and I was clearly at a disadvantage. Pressed by the situation, I had no choice but to cease hostilities and quietly move to a corner to rest. I took out a medical kit from my space, carefully cleaned my wound, and applied medicine. Then I grabbed a box of self-heating braised beef rice and a piece of ready-to-eat chicken steak, simple yet nutritious. After eating and drinking my fill, I leaned against the corner, held my breath, and slowly recovered my abilities. Hunt Winter's team quietly sat in another corner, watching my actions strangely. Snow sat demurely among them, holding a matcha-flavored compressed biscuit, with a 250 milliliters bottle of juice at her feet, perhaps because the food was delicious. She blissfully squinted her eyes, and a shallow dimple appeared on her lips. It seemed she had completely forgotten about the friends outside for whom she had cried her heart out. I noticed that the wound on my arm was slightly painful and showing signs of inflammation, and my head also throbbed painfully. Continuing this way was not an option. Looking at Snow, I suddenly remembered that in a previous life, both she and Rylan had incredibly fast healing speeds when injured. Rylan's strong physique was understandable, but Snow's exceptional performance without any abilities was clearly illogical. Perhaps this had something to do with her golden finger. The spiritual spring in my space, which had been ignored all this time, suddenly came back into my view. At the time, Snow herself had announced that the spring water could dilute the zombie virus. But who knew if what she said was true? With this thought, my nerves suddenly became excited. I slightly closed my eyes as if dozing, keeping part of my senses alert to the outside world. Meanwhile, in my conscious space, I controlled an empty mineral water bottle, filled it with spring water, screwed the cap tightly, and took it out as if nothing had happened. I swallowed a few mouthfuls, as if just drinking ordinary water. The taste was nothing special, just like that of mineral water. But after drinking it, I felt the piercing pain in my arms slowly fading, and my abilities recovered at an extremely fast rate. I had bet correctly. This spring water was like a cheating artifact. No wonder Snow's protagonist Aura weakened without it. Despite the inner excitement, I kept my composure on the surface and pretended to fall into a deep sleep due to lack of energy. The night was quiet and peaceful, but who knew how many could actually sleep? The next morning, Hunt Winter's team was ready to set off. The trouble was, they seemed to have set their sights on me. More precisely, Rylan was inexplicably focused on me, requesting that I join his team temporarily for the mission. Seeing that I had not agreed for a while, Rylan narrowed his eyes dangerously, observing my expressions like a hunter. "Since we're all on the same mission, why not join my team? Or do you have other places in mind?" He had to admit, his instincts were sharp. If I keep refusing, it wouldn't be surprising if he, that venomous snake, becomes thoroughly suspicious and entangles me in his schemes. Such an annoyance that you just can't shake off. The meteorite is about to hit H-City soon, and I must make sure to get there alone, ahead of time. I need to think of a way to find a legitimate excuse to break away from them. I'll join, but on one condition. During our conversation, I and the members of the Winter Hunt squad stood by the second-floor window, using our special abilities to clear the zombies wandering at the door. This group's abilities varied widely, including fire, wood, manipulation, strength, and psychic, each member highly talented. Even though they were among the chosen few geniuses of the base, they couldn't help but be stunned by my ability to take down several zombies at once. It was clear I had spatial abilities, yet I could also attack, which was illogical. But then, there are many illogical things in this world. And they couldn't figure out the specifics from me, they simply thought I was particularly strong. Now, in the early days of the apocalypse, no one would think of something like devouring evolution. Let's hear it. Lightning twirled around Ryland's fingertips, casting a slight glow on his handsome features. He seemed interested in what I had to say. I won't be your free labor or your storage vehicle. So my condition is that anything I collect during the mission is mine alone. Not to be shared with the team, as I used about a fifth of my ability. I pretended that my powers were drained and slowly wiped my katana while leaning casually against the windowsill. Perhaps due to the bloodstains, the blade seemed even colder and more menacing. Actually, not sharing collected items was against the base's regulations. According to the mission hall rules, everything collected by a squad on a mission was supposed to belong to the base. And there were even inspectors responsible for inventory. Violators would be expelled from the base. I dared to make such a condition knowing that Ryland was a core member of the base's upper echelons, in special circumstances like temporary teams or missions independent of the main tasks. He had the authority to amend the rules. It's necessary to reveal some weaknesses to the enemy so they lower their guard. My greed and selfishness, for instance, would make Ryland believe he had seen the real me. As I expected, he agreed without much enthusiasm. It's a deal. Because of a surge in zombies, the journey to the city center became exceptionally difficult. We fought our way there in a military truck, taking 3 days and nights. No one knew that I was overextending my abilities every day, just to gain quicker control over my powers. With a wealth of combat experience, my destructive power and spatial awareness increased significantly. Just 1,000 meters away from a mutated willow tree in the center of H City, Winter Hunt began to conserve energy. The team chose an old pawn shop as our resting place. After the apocalypse, no one was interested in the items pawned there, which made this shop unusually clean and tidy. There was a reason for this choice, of course, with a plan in mind. I quietly took an old jade pendant from my space and tucked it into my pocket. The once smooth jade now felt cool and dull to the touch. H City was soon to face the meteorite landing, and I had finally devised a way to rid myself of them without suspicion. As night fell, everyone, exhausted from the day's fighting, rested closely together. Ryland, seated nearest to me, had his black hair messily falling over his forehead, his expression serene. In the quiet corner, I leaned against the wall, pretending to be asleep. In the middle of the night, a staggering zombie entered the pawn shop. Lunging ferociously at Ryland, I silently got up and walked away. Suddenly awakened, Snow gasped softly and without hesitation threw herself in front of him to block the zombie. Amid the zombie's ghastly howls, she closed her eyes in despair, her face deathly pale. But a second later, a flash of lightning filled the room, and the attacking zombie was flung several meters away, completely motionless. Who asked you to save me? In the dim light of a small lamp inside the pawn shop, Ryland, with his arms around the person he saved, had a dark expression on his face. Hearing his slightly reproachful tone, Snow turned her head slightly, looking aggrieved. Her cheeks were tinged with a blush. When she retorted, her tone was a mix of anger and haughty defiance. Who do you think you are? Who says I'm saving you? I would have saved anyone in that situation. Okay. After her sharp response, Ryland arched an eyebrow and gripped her waist, his gaze becoming deeper and more dangerous. Really, you'd risk your life for anyone? Yes. And what does it have to do with you? Snow, annoyed and playful, pushed against his chest and stuck out her tongue teasingly, the soft, rosy tip making his breath hitch. This striking scene unfolded before me, and I silently retched a few times without expression. Damn, they better not be starting anything here. I finally believe that this world is thoroughly a post-apocalyptic romance novel. I guess I'm just meant to be the antagonist. When can I take my revenge on them? If I take that meteorite and steal the male lead's opportunity, their protagonistic aura should weaken. Right, in the midst of their sweet bickering that was really just flirtation in disguise, I walked into the pawn shop, pretending to browse. Casually, I picked up a pill of Wuji Baifeng Wan, a jade ring, and mixed in a white jade pendant. My jade pendant, even in the dim light, Snow recognized the pendant hanging on a red cord around my neck at a glance. It was the pendant lingering in her mind, her intuition telling her it was crucial to her life. She had to get it back. Ella, this pendant looks similar to the keepsake my mother left me. Snow nervously curled her fingertips, her beautiful delicate face almost completely flushed as she lied, though she didn't spell it out. Everyone in the squad instinctively focused on the pendant around my neck. In this post-apocalyptic world, a jade pendant wasn't a rare item, and everyone guessed I'd take it off and give it to her as a favor. Unfortunately, they were wrong. I'm not the type to pity or spare anyone. Slowly twirling the red cord around my fingers, I played with the pendant, smiling and locking eyes with Snow. You're lying. I'm not. Easily seen through. Snow's gaze became warm, helpless, and a bit misty, her innocence and allure apparent. Everyone could see she was lying, but somehow found her clumsiness endearing. After all, what harm could a girl who couldn't even lie properly do? Certainly less threatening than someone assertive and aggressive like me. Soon, several men in the squad spoke up for Snow. Ella, just give it to her. It's not like the pendant is a treasure. Yeah, Snow is about to cry. Why bully her? You keeping the pendant is useless anyway. Just leave it as a keepsake for Snow. They weren't wrong in thinking the pendant was currently useless, but I had gone through a lot of trouble to set up this conflict. How could I easily relent? Under everyone's watchful eyes, I yanked off the pendant and stored it back in my space, spreading my empty hands openly. Sorry, I found the pendant, and I don't want to give it to anyone. That's the reliance of a space manipulator, even in death. Only they can retrieve what's in their space. As everyone was on the same team fighting side by side, they found it hard to press further and simply bowed their heads to continue resting. Only Snow became more anxious as the pendant disappeared, stomping her feet with tears brimming in her eyes. In the dim light, she lifted her delicate white fingertips and gently tugged at Rylan's clothes, silently pleading. Rylan, intent on teasing her, chuckled deeply, ask nicely, and I'll help you. With no other option, Snow buried her head low, softly and obediently calling out, Brother, please, say it again. You, Snow, provoked, looked up with tears brimming at the corners of her eyes, her lips soft and full, dipped in enticing crimson. Seeing this, Rylan was satisfied and tousled her hair, commanding from above, Give it to her. Why should I? Because I'm the team leader, Captain. Have you forgotten the agreement we made when you joined the team? I tilted my head, displaying an innocently bureaucratic smile. The stuff collected wasn't handed over. Reminded by me, Rylan finally remembered his promise. He frowned impatiently and clicked his tongue, pulling a cigarette from the pack and placing it between his lips. Just a little thing like this. Can't you hand it over? No. I moved my fingertips, tearing the lit cigarette at his mouth in half. I disliked the smell of cigarettes. It was the first time someone dared to use supernatural abilities in front of him. Rylan's expression turned cold, his eyes sharp. Refusals are only because the stakes aren't high enough. Name your price. What do you want? I leaned against the wall, pulling out a saber from thin air and began to wipe it, remaining silent. Supplies? I don't lack them. Points? Don't need them. A place at the base? I have one. After several questions blocked nonchalantly by me, Rylan's temper flared. Do you believe I can make it impossible for you to stay at the northern base? I can always switch bases. The saber grew shinier as I wiped, a cold light emanating from it. Snow was somewhat scared, but seeing my tenacity, she became even more convinced of the extreme importance of the jade pendant in my possession. Thus, she nervously twisted the hem of her clothes, mustering the courage to speak timidly. Ella, I'm a researcher at the base. Last time I was at your place, I saw your sister seemed ill. I assure you, if you're willing to hand over the jade pendant, you or your sister can come to me anytime you need potions in the future. Hearing this, the pretending to be indifferent hunters also turned their heads in surprise. In these apocalyptic times, potions are extremely precious, often hard to come by. A single antidote potion usually requires a year's worth of task points to redeem, and there's a quota. Getting a promise from a researcher was truly tempting, but I just smiled, shaking my head gently and pressed the saber against Snow's neck. The sharp blade instantly cut through her delicate skin, and drops of blood began to flow. Snow froze in place, not daring to move, her face turning ghostly pale. Who allowed you to mention my sister? Oh Snow, you who stole the potion and caused my sister's death. How could you shamelessly say you'd help with potions in the future? In the basement back then, I should have killed you without a second thought. The space ability in my palm slowly converged, a tremendous murderous intent ready to erupt. But then a pair of slender, pale hands wrapped in lightning moved the saber away from Snow's neck. A streak of lightning followed the blade, leaving a scorched mark in my palm at lightning speed. It was followed by a familiar paralysis. the sensation of electricity coursing through my body like in my past life. But this time, I wouldn't let myself be slaughtered again. At the same moment, a bloody wound appeared on Ryland's shoulder. 20 centimeters long, deep enough to see the bone, a thick purple lightning dragon erupted around him, making his stern face appear even more terrifying. "Ella, you dare to touch my people, aren't you afraid I'll kill you? You can try." The arm hit by the lightning was still a bit numb, movements slightly awkward, but I was fearless, the smile still lingering on my lips despite the scar in my palm. "Then you aren't afraid I'll kill your sister?" "Sorry. My sister is now the precious daughter of the deputy commander of the Western base. I doubt Captain Ryland has the ability to kill her." Ryland's chilling aura faltered, clearly not expecting this twist. "Enough, I don't want the jade pendant anymore. Stop fighting." Seeing Ryland injured by my hand, Snow, with tears in her eyes, rushed forward to shield him. She remained as naive and gentle as ever. If this level of confrontation was truly just over a jade pendant, it would not be worth it. From the moment we first met, Ryland didn't trust me. We both knew that Snow was just an excuse for us to test each other's strength. Protagonists and antagonists are natural archenemies by design. Now, with my honed evolutionary powers and his innate abilities, we were evenly matched. As we faced off in a deadlock, I sheathed my saber, dispersed my powers, and let out a laugh. "Just kidding, Captain, you can have the jade pendant, but the military vehicle outside is mine." Casually, I tossed the small jade pendant into Snow's arms, who was sobbing as he tended to Ryland's wounds. The tense atmosphere instantly dissolved. Ryland and I weren't really going to fight to the death today. He needed to deal with the mutated Willow in the city center. I had to intercept a meteorite that was about to crash. We were both busy. "What do you need the military vehicle for?" Ryland didn't refuse and let Snow bandage his wounds while crying. "We're parting ways. You broke the agreement first. We're not compatible." The members of the winter hunting squad felt awkward hearing this, not realizing that I intended to provoke a confrontation. These past few days had been too suffocating, and I couldn't bear to leave without seeing the main characters thwarted. Finally, amid Ryland's inscrutable expression, one of the team members handed me the ignition for one of the military vehicles. "Till we meet again," I waved cheerfully and drove away, the burning sensation in my palm barely noticeable as I gripped the steering wheel. I looked forward to the day I could finally take them down. The military vehicle developed by the base had state-of-the-art anti-tracking features. Sensing no one following, I floored the accelerator and headed straight for the remembered location of the meteorite's impact. At 2 a.m. in H City, all was silent. A purple-red fireball streaked across the night sky, lighting up half the heavens before it slowly extinguished and fell. When the meteorite landed, I rushed from the rubble to the site. A 3-meter-deep crater had formed on the previously flat ground, surrounded by scorched earth. At the center of the crater lay a fist-sized irregular rock, with purple lightning occasionally flickering on its surface, wrapping around an inner glow of red fire. This was the meteorite my squad had collected and turned in my previous life. Containing my excitement, I took out a prepared protective vacuum box from my space to secure the meteorite. The box could isolate viruses and radiation and had a signal-blocking feature. Once in my space, no one else would know the whereabouts of this meteorite. I was about to climb out of the crater, satisfied, when I felt a very faint spatial fluctuation from the soil under my feet. It was so subtle that I wouldn't have noticed it without my enhanced spatial perception. Following my instinct, I continued to dig deeper. Eventually, 2 meters beneath the crater's base, another palm-sized meteorite appeared, emitting a soft silvery glow surrounded by rich spatial energy. I suddenly recalled that in the 9th year of the apocalypse, H City had been declared a restricted area by all major bases because it had become the Lost City, where explorers who entered never returned. I had a suspicion then that this phenomenon was related to space. Could the Lost City and this overlooked meteorite be connected? If Ryland could absorb the Thunderfire meteorite to evolve his abilities, could I also undergo a secondary evolution by absorbing this spatial meteorite? This bold speculation sent my heart racing. The evening wind on the plain was bleak and biting, constantly calling me back to reason. After securing the silvery meteorite into my space, I intended to explore the area, but disturbances started appearing from all directions within 200 meters. Someone was coming. I tightened my hood and hid in a nearby abandoned shopping mall, an ideal spot with underground passages that led discreetly to a street block 500 meters away. Perfect for a quick getaway. The military vehicle was stored in my space, ready to be driven at full speed in the opposite direction of the city center. Once I reached the main road, returning to the base, there's no telling what unexpected events might occur. If the large detection device at the entrance can detect the meteorite through space, the loss would be significant. The difference between the basements built by the rich and those at the base is like night and day. They're clean, spacious, and even furnished with beds and bedding. I still carefully locked up, using a military card directly from my space to block the entrance door. Once I confirmed it was safe and wouldn't be disturbed, I sat down cross-legged in a corner, flipping my palm. The slightly glowing meteorite reappeared. The last time I absorbed energy from the jade space, I didn't feel much. But the energy attached to this meteorite was clearly much more substantial. Just to be cautious, I had already fortified myself with several bottles of spiritual spring water. As soon as I closed my eyes and connected my special abilities to the meteorite, a sharp pain struck my heart. The intense pain grew worse, spreading from my chest to my limbs and bones. I clenched my teeth to keep from crying out in pain, struggling to stay conscious. The basement lights burst one by one due to the energy effect. In the darkness, I felt as if my skin and organs were continuously being torn apart. But then, a gentle energy from the spiritual spring slowly flowed and nourished my body. Time slowly passed as I was torn apart, reshaped, and torn apart again. When I opened my eyes again, it was about 2 days later. I carefully sensed the direction of my ability's second evolution, my thoughts gradually clearing, folding space to achieve transportation and transition of physical entities. The extent of the fold depends on the user's skill level and talent. Although it's just a supportive ability, it's very useful. However, the enhancement from the second evolution didn't stop there. I suddenly realized that the space, which hadn't changed for a long time, had now expanded tenfold, and my tearing ability seemed to have significantly increased as well. This unexpected change left me deep in thought. If there can be a second evolution, could there be a third? What is the limit of ability evolution, if it could evolve continuously? Could humanity ultimately survive? I sat in the dim basement for a long time, eventually deciding to share the secret of ability devouring and evolution with the public. The real apocalypse is not some heroic narrative. The more powerful individuals with abilities, the greater the chances of humanity's survival. 13 years after the apocalypse, the sight of human life ceasing on the ruins was still vivid in my mind. What if we could win? In the basement of the villa area, there's a radio that covers all channels. I disguised my voice and encrypted the signal several times before broadcasting. The moment after I revealed the secret of ability evolution, requests to connect to the channel flooded in like a tide. I promptly cut off the communication and switched to the base's public channel, after learning that everyone had dealt with the mutated Willow in the city center and was preparing to return. I planned my next steps. After cleaning up the traces left in the basement, I completely destroyed the radio and left. Every major base has its secret talents, and it's possible someone had already pinpointed my location, so I had to evacuate. Moreover, I needed to blend into the team to eliminate any suspicion. Historically, those who know too many secrets tend not to live long. 5 teams agreed to meet in the southern part of H City, with the gathering scheduled in 5 days. Currently, I'm in the far north, and the 2 locations are very far apart. It would take 6 days to travel between them at full speed. But fortunately, my spatial ability has evolved a second time, and by utilizing folding, I managed to teleport to the meeting point after stopping 4 or 5 times along the way. Within a day, I achieved a 1,000-mile rush, showcasing the power of evolved abilities. On the first evening, I arrived on a street 2 kilometers from the meeting point and retrieved the military card from my space. As I drove leisurely towards the main troop, only 2 unfamiliar teams were stationed at the campsite. I parked the military card on the outskirts and casually set up a tent in a corner to rest. The ability users from the 2 teams gathered around the central bonfire, their expressions solemn. It was then I realized they were discussing the news of ability devouring and evolution that I had recently announced. Do you think what that person said on the radio is true? It must be a made-up story. This isn't some apocalyptic thriller. How could abilities possibly evolve, even if they can evolve? He mentioned items with the same attributes, but I've never heard of such things. The crowd murmured among themselves, skeptical yet visibly excited. Who doesn't want to become stronger? In a post-apocalyptic world, strength is the ultimate rule. I sat down cross-legged in silence, quietly eating bread and milk while listening, without participating in the conversation. The next evening, 2 military trucks from the winter hunt squad arrived at the rendezvous point. Rylan got out of one of the trucks, carrying Snow in his arms. Snow was wrapped in a large men's overcoat, her small face buried in his chest. Blushing, with her delicate lips slightly swollen, she clung to his neck softly, her almond eyes moist and incredibly dewy. When Rylan set her down, he playfully nipped at her delicate earlobe, causing her legs to go weak and nearly unable to stand. In broad daylight, the divine scene was set to unfold right there. As soon as I opened the tent, I was greeted by this unsightly scene and emotionlessly retreated back. Everything was calm until the third night when the fourth squad approached from the direction of the city center. While everyone was still deep in sleep, a faint zombie howl shattered the night's calm. I abruptly opened my eyes, sensing something extraordinary. I followed the crowd to the center of the camp, where the captain of the guard, dressed in combat gear, looked unusually stern. Nearly all the researchers and guards had been summoned. The Winter Hunt Squad, acting as a special forces unit, was at the forefront. They unloaded a metal cage from one of the military trucks. The cage, shimmering faintly with a silver light, imprisoned a zombie. Upon seeing the dense crowd, it growled lowly as a threat. When it realized it couldn't escape the cage, the zombie eerily quieted down and stiffly observed its surroundings. This was the biggest problem. It was conscious. Captain, we captured this zombie 200 meters east of the mutated willow. It's exhibiting abnormal behaviors. Should we execute it immediately? The squad leader reported the situation in detail, his expression equally grim. A zombie exhibiting abnormalities was not a good sign. If they could become stronger, humanity would be in danger. It was clear Rylan had thought of this too. His palms burst forth with majestic purple lightning in the cold, dark night, the intent to kill spreading. However, just then, the zombie suddenly stopped moving and stared intently in Snow's direction. It made a heh-heh sound, seemingly anxious. Snow, initially turning her head away in pity, inadvertently met its gaze and shuddered violently. She incredulously stepped back, her eyes misting over. I knew Snow recognized it. It was a child she had cared for in the orphanage where she volunteered before the apocalypse. In a previous life, a conscious zombie had also been captured but later disappeared from the research institute. I suspected it wasn't an escape but that Snow, recognizing it, had secretly set it free. Why was I so sure this was the same zombie? Because it was the future zombie king who led the zombies against humanity, killing countless mutants, and it was also Snow's last trump card in the apocalypse. In a previous life, during a zombie horde siege on the northern base, a retreat had occurred. At that time, I was on the city wall, transporting weapons. Back then, Snow, anxiously watching Rylan fighting on the front lines, hadn't noticed a gaze from the horde intensely fixed on her. The moment Snow accidentally fell into the zombie horde, I personally witnessed the Zombie King issuing a retreat order. That battle cost the lives of many of the base's guards and mutants. I had been injured under its command and remembered its aura. Now, it was still very weak. As Rylan was about to strike, Snow, her face deathly pale, stepped forward and grabbed his arm. No, don't kill it. Let's send it back to the research institute. It might help us find a cure for the zombie virus, she explained calmly, her beautiful eyes flickering with resolve. The onlooking researchers exchanged glances and ultimately agreed with her suggestion. Following the principle of prioritizing researchers, Rylan agreed. The zombie was detained in the Winter Hunt Squad's military truck, with Rylan secretly keeping the key. Seeing this, Snow secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Before dawn, in the darkest hour of the world, Snow somehow stole the key and silently unlocked the cage in the military truck while everyone else was asleep. The zombie, once released, did not attack her as expected, but instead just stood there without attempting to escape. Snow couldn't help but chuckle at its behavior, her cheeks dimpling softly with a smile. Come on Annie, don't get caught again, she said, waving her hand affectionately to urge it to leave. Only when its figure staggered away into the dense night did she quietly return to her team, her heart finally at ease. I got up from the soft bed, sensing the direction in which it had disappeared. Quickly, I activated a folding jump and teleported several times to the desolate outskirts. There I saw it sitting atop the ruins like a human, surrounded by several wandering zombies that seemed to be summoned by its presence. The space fluctuated, and I appeared beside it, sensing danger. It quickly blended into the zombie crowd below. Narrowing my eyes, I made a slight gesture with my fingertips, and the heads of the zombies covering its escape were torn apart and fell to the ground. It was severely injured, with a deep gash on its neck where the flesh had been torn open. Seeing its puppet comrades fall, It looked at me with a burst of hatred in its eyes before turning to run. As it fled, it didn't forget to emit a ha-ha sound, calling more of its kind. So, the ha-ha was a call for assembly. What about the people in the camp then? I lowered my gaze and pursued it, catching up in a few blinks and pinning it forcefully to the ground. It still struggled violently as I pressed my knee into its chest to restrain it, my hands slowly tightening around its neck. Tear, tear, tear. Its body was exceptionally robust. I pounded it with my powers until my consciousness blurred. Zombies from the dark corners nearby howled and approached but were torn apart within a meter's distance. With a thud, a head fell to the ground, making a dull sound. Exhausted, I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air and looking up at the sky. Dawn was breaking, and the first light appeared on the horizon. I had won. After fully regaining my strength 2 hours later in broad daylight, I sat up and picked up the skull, sensing a strange energy fluctuation. With a small movement of my fingertips, the skull cracked open, revealing a small, transparent crystal core amidst the black, stinking brain matter. A crystal core, unheard of in 10 years since the apocalypse began. No one had ever found a crystal core in a zombie's brain. The thumb-sized core radiated pure energy, seemingly attributeless. If it had no attribute, perhaps I could absorb it. I temporarily stored the head, body, and crystal core in my space and teleported back to the tent using the folding jump. It was lively outside early in the morning, as the ability users were clearing the surrounding zombie bodies. Despite the attack, the large and powerful numbers at the gathering point had managed to completely annihilate them. Suddenly, a shout broke the situation. Not good, the zombie in the cage has disappeared. Chaotic footsteps sounded, and I lay straight back on the soft bedding, peacefully. I fell asleep. On the evening of the 5th day, the last team arrived at the gathering point. After nearly half a month of bloody battles, everyone was tired. The logistics team generously cooked noodle soup. People gathered around the camp, excitedly burying their heads and devouring the fragrant noodles. I too received some food and quietly shrank in a corner to reduce my presence. Before I had eaten half, Rylan and other senior internal members received a communication from the base. They held a secret meeting on a military truck, and when they came down, they looked solemnly over the crowd. The guard team then began to individually check the ability users present, asking about everyone's whereabouts on the night 5 days ago. I immediately realized that the people from the northern base had decrypted the encrypted signal from the radio in the villa's basement. Now that they had the location, they wanted to use it to find those who knew the secrets of ability evolution. From evening to deep night, the guard team conducted a thorough check without much result. Although members of the 5 teams had been separated by accidents, most had escaped in groups, meaning they had companions to vouch for them. Only I, alone and solitary, was the most suspect on the scene. However, the captain of the guard team just circled around me twice, confirmed my appearance, and then excluded me. The reason was simple. The broadcast's location was in the northernmost part of H City. Traveling from the north takes at least 6 days and nights. I arrived at the camp on the first day after the rally signal was sent, and 2 teams remembered me. A search for those in trouble yielded no results, so the guard squad let everyone return to their tents to rest. I didn't move and stayed sitting by the campfire, warming myself and roasting sweet potatoes by the charcoal. When the apocalypse first began, I passed by a farm and gathered some tasty tubers. A dark figure approached, the bright campfire casting a flickering light on his face. "You are strong, join the winter hunt. I will ensure your safety," said Rylan. It was both a recruitment and a test. Even though I was cleared of suspicion, his hunter's intuition still pinpointed me as the person from the broadcast. Unfortunately, he had no proof. Recruiting me was meant to enhance the overall strength of the winter hunt and to pry more secrets of evolution from me. I pulled a fragrant roasted sweet potato from the fire, peeled it, and took a bite. It was soft and sticky, just the texture Luna liked. I planned to promote its cultivation once we reached the western base. Rylan was still waiting for my response, quietly and calmly, but in reality, he knew my background and I understood his schemes. We were tacit enemies. Even if I agreed, she wouldn't, I said. She's too kind to associate with me. I didn't outright refuse but instead lifted my chin in a mocking smile. From a nearby tent, Snow, tightly wrapped in his oversized coat, stared over, his face tense and unable to hide his disappointment as he ran towards the darkness. "I hope you won't regret this." The man's cool voice reached me, and by the time I looked up, he had already left. The warmth of the fire faded, and a chill swept in. I threw the sweet potato skin into the fire, watching as Rylan chased after Snow into the night. In the darkness, their proverbial halos of the main characters were faintly visible. Having not seen them for many days, Rylan's powers were now much weaker than mine. This meant Snow's triple fortunes, the Jade Space, a powerful partner, and the Zombie King, had all been severed by me. It seemed time to make a move on them. The journey back to the northern base took about half a month, and I drove a military truck blending in with the main forces. Unfortunately, I found no opportunity to catch the main characters alone even as we entered the base. Soon, an unexpected event silently occurred. Zombie horde incoming. All those with abilities, please quickly head to the city tower to combat the zombies. The base's shrill alarm echoed through the skies, a tense atmosphere spreading. I sprang from the dim basement bed, dressed in heavy clothes, and headed out. All those rushing towards the city tower were ability users, normally dispersed. The guards now emerged en masse, rushing to the front lines with their weapons. I had killed the Zombie King. Why was the zombie horde still erupting like in my past life? Could fate really not be changed? I saw Rylan at the city tower, dressed in all-black tactical gear. He led the winter hunt squad, their faces grim as they stared at the horizon. A suffocating stench of decay filled the air, heralding the arrival of the horde. As the dense growling approached, all the ability users sprang into action. I realized then that the crowd already included evolved ability users. I was thankful I had disclosed the secret of ability evolution, giving humanity an extra chance. As the base commander issued orders, countless abilities exploded among the zombies. Earth walls, firestorms, tornadoes, lightning. However, as waves of zombies fell, more continuously took their place, seemingly tireless and fearless. They surged towards the base like a tidal wave. Gradually, an atmosphere of oppression and despair began to spread. Without a moment to spare, I climbed to the highest step, kneeled on one knee, and gently placed my palm on the ground. Suddenly, a huge crack appeared out of nowhere on the battlefield. It was like a dark bottomless pit, frantically sucking in everything nearby. The zombies in the vicinity couldn't resist this powerful force and were violently pulled into the crack and devoured completely. The dense wave of zombies seemed caught off guard. Pausing abruptly for a moment, only after clearing a whole area did I raise my hand to close the crack. After resting on the spot for a few minutes, I turned in a different direction and continued to tear open new fissures with both hands. Several cracks appeared simultaneously on the field, filled with deadly intent. Even the most experienced superhumans were shocked by this scene, all casting sideways glances. Damn, I thought that was the ultimate move just now. How can she still unleash more? Who is this girl? I've never heard of her before. I thought I was being tragic just now, but now I feel strangely pumped. The power of an individual is insignificant. Even I, a superhuman who has evolved twice, cannot dominate the battlefield alone. Fortunately, nearly 300 superhumans were gathered at the base, which was more than enough to handle these early-stage zombies. The struggle was only due to everyone's lack of experience in defending a city during the apocalypse. Having fought alongside the base for nearly a decade in my previous life, I was able to fill that gap. Earth users, create a wall 50 meters from the base for separation, and a 5-meter deep circular trench 100 meters further. Water users, fill the trench with water, and electro users, release electricity into it. Wind users, work with fire users to spread a sea of fire around the base. Mental abilities. At first, the superhumans were hesitant about my commands. But once they saw they were effective, everyone began to carry them out. The battle lasted several hours, and the sunset gradually disappeared below the horizon. When the last wave of zombies staggered and fell, the entire battlefield fell into a deadly silence. I closed the remaining spatial cracks and looked around. The firelight illuminated the entire area, and the ground littered with zombie limbs and dark bloodstains testified to the intensity of the recent battle. Victorious shouts spread from the city tower to the base, and many superhumans wept. Exhausted, I leaned against the city wall, my clothes soaked with sweat. The aftermath of overusing my abilities hit, and a sharp pain surged through my mind. In my blurred consciousness, I saw Snow, who had somehow made her way up the city tower, her bright eyes wide open, her pale face advancing towards me step by step. I instinctively furrowed my brows, sensing something was off, and a sense of alertness arose. The zombie wave has truly erupted. Those dreams were real. Where's my jade pendant? I should be a senior researcher. Why didn't your sister die? It's not supposed to be like this. You're just a rat from the gutter. I am the heroine. I am their savior. It's you, you bitch. You took everything from me. Snow's eyes misted over, her hand trembling as she revealed a dagger hidden behind her. She murmured softly, a hint of madness flickering across her face. At that moment, I was exhausted. Leaning against the city wall, barely standing, with no strength left to resist, the closest person to us was Rylan, but he just coldly watched as Snow drove the cold dagger into my shoulder. The next second, purple lightning surged into my body, and I smelled the scent of burning flesh. My limbs numbed, unable to move, and the pain nearly shattered my sanity. Just like in my previous life, I fell from the high city wall once again. In my ears, the shouts of victory still echoed, "I can't die. Luna is still waiting for me." The fierce wind howled ceaselessly, and in the final moment before hitting the ground, I barely activated a fold. Before teleporting away, I saw the second wave of zombies furiously surging towards the horizon. When I regained consciousness, I was in a basement again, but it wasn't my home's basement, bearing the severe pain in my shoulder. I tried to push myself up but found my limbs powerless and unable to move. In the dim light, a plump little hand suddenly touched my mouth, and a sweet taste instantly spread across my palate. The door to the basement was pushed open, as someone, weary from travel, entered and turned on the light. Only then could I clearly see the child sitting next to me. It was Mountain's granddaughter, Yo-Yo. "Sit further away. Don't touch your sister," Mountain said. He had barely managed to secure some medicine from the base clinic when he found his granddaughter curiously leaning over my bed. In a panic, he picked her up, only then realizing I had come to, "My savior, you're finally awake." I hadn't seen Mountain in months. His posture was straighter, and he no longer looked as haggard and old as when we first met. Yo-Yo, quietly sitting in his arms, blinked her big eyes, her face softer now. After the first wave of zombies passed, I took on a task to help clear the zombie corpses around the base perimeter. "I didn't expect to find you, seeing the knife on your shoulder. I got scared and didn't dare send you to the clinic, so I carried you back home instead. Luckily, my ancestors were doctors, which gave me the courage to remove the knife and stop the bleeding. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Are you all right?" As Mountain carefully explained, he lifted the white cloth from my shoulder to apply medicine to the wound. When the first wave of zombies struck, he had taken his granddaughter to the basement for refuge. Unaware of what was happening on the city walls, when the second crisis arrived, he hadn't ventured out again. I listened in silence, offering no explanations. A pot of millet porridge simmered on the stove nearby, bubbling and releasing a light, milky fragrance. "Have some porridge to regain your strength." Mountain served me a bowl of the thickest porridge. His granddaughter sipped the millet soup, smacking her lips, while he cheerfully nibbled on dry biscuits. A slight bitterness welled up in me as I gratefully accepted the bowl and slowly sipped. Only after consuming half a bowl of warm porridge did my strength somewhat return. That's when I realized that my supernatural abilities were still depleted, making even retrieving objects from my space extremely difficult. My weakened body was slowing the recovery of my powers. Based on the current situation, I would need at least half a month before I could use my abilities again. However, from Mountain's description, I surmised that the third wave of zombies would arrive soon. After a moment of thought, I used the last bit of my regained strength to pull a thumb-sized crystal core from my space and crawled to a corner to sit cross-legged. "Grandpa, I need to meditate in silence for the next 3 days. Please guard this place for me." All right, I'll make sure no one disturbs you," Mountain solemnly nodded, then carried his granddaughter to the bed and dragged it to the door to block it. He lay down straight, demonstrating his unyielding resolve. I managed a weak smile at him, gripped the crystal core, and slowly closed my eyes. This was the unattributed energy core I had extracted from the brain of a zombie king after killing him. It was supposed to be absorbable. Soon, a pure, warm current flowed from my palm, spreading through my fingertips into my limbs and bones, like a long dry well desperately absorbing a much-needed rain. My weakened body soaked up the tremendous energy, which transformed into a spatial force, slowly permeating the cramped basement, the empty base, the psychics fighting bravely on the walls, the rapidly approaching third wave of zombies. Just as I thought my consciousness would not extend further, the limitations of space broke, extending into a vast wasteland, huge armies of zombies, humans fleeing in all directions, bases being gradually overrun. The distant eastern and southern bases had already fallen, people screaming as they died under the jaws of zombies. Yet the next second, they staggered to their feet, their complexions ashen. The crystal core in my hand gradually dimmed, and my consciousness began to retract. The third evolution of my abilities also spawned a new power, seal, isolate a certain range of space, preventing any entity from entering or leaving, a strong defensive ability, perfect for defending a city. At the same time, I noticed on a shelf in the corner of the space, where seeds were stored, a tender green sprout was bursting with life. This means that the space can now sustain life and house living beings. I controlled the seed with my consciousness, attempting to plant it in the greenhouse experimental field a kilometer away from the base through fold teleportation. After a moment, the slightly moist sensation of the soil was transmitted through the seed. It was a success. The fold had evolved from only being able to teleport oneself to creating spatial channels to transport other entities. Sister, in the cramped and dim basement, the doll that had been sleeping soundly suddenly scrambled up, pointing in my direction and babbling. Mountain, who had been napping, instantly sat up with a jolt. Seeing that I had woken up unharmed, he let out a huge sigh of relief. The small stove was ready with cooked white rice and a boiled egg. The old man scooped a full bowl of rice for me and stuffed the egg into my hand. The doll in his arms looked eagerly, drooling, but sensibly did not fuss to eat. Soft-hearted, I quickly peeled the eggshell, took a few bites, and fed the tender yolk to her. However, I had barely eaten a few bites when the base's shrill alarm sounded again. Warning, the third wave of the zombie horde is approaching. Please support if you can. The broadcast repeated 3 times and then stopped, never to sound again. Although this wave of zombies was not as large as before, after 2 desperate battles, everyone was already at their limit. The remaining superhumans stood on the city walls, filled with despair. Seeing the dire situation, Rylan hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to leave with teary-eyed Snow. Little did they know, the next second, my figure had shifted to the city wall. The superhumans watched as a figure rippled out of thin air, and just as the zombies were about to breach the wall, they were suddenly blocked by an unknown force. The familiar spatial rift appeared again, devouring a large number of zombies around it. The commander is back, I declare. From now on, the commander's sister is my great sister. What to do? I feel like we can win again. It turned out that during my absence, the base leader had appointed me as the commander. My combat power instantly turned the tide, and the exhausted crowd seemed to grasp hope and cheered up, pushing their drained superpowers to the limit. They continued to use them. When it became clear that the zombies were indeed being invisibly blocked outside the base, everyone became even more energized, almost recklessly smashing their superpowers down. The few superhumans who had evolved during the last encounter were still alive, showing extraordinary combat strength. Having fought side by side for many days, they developed a tacit understanding, and the combination of wind and fire instantly whipped up a fiery explosion on the battlefield. The soaring flames licked the dark clouds, seeming to break through them. This is the greatness of humanity. Even on the brink of extinction, as long as there is a glimmer of hope for survival, they will rise up in resistance. Hope, like a spark, ignites the boundless wilderness in people's hearts. The superhumans shouted slogans, vowing to defend the fortress built by human hands. When the last zombie disappeared into the rift, dawn quietly arrived, daylight scattered across the earth, and the zombie tide completely receded. Listening quietly to the shouts of victory, I disappeared from the crowd. Boom, in the secret passage of the northern base, I appeared directly, tearing the speeding military truck into 2 halves. The 2 people inside tumbled out, rolling several meters away. Snow groaned in pain, her delicate skin almost completely unscathed. The arm that had stabbed me with a dagger was forcibly torn off, its stark white bones exposed to the air. The next second, she turned pale and fainted, but how could I easily let her go? I hooked the corner of my lips, raised my hand, and harshly tore off her other fair arm. This arm had stolen the potion in a past life, causing my sister's death. It should not remain. Snow was painfully awakened from her faint, looking at me with eyes filled with fear. You can't kill people, you can't kill me. I'm the female lead, I understand. Do you like Rylan? I can give him up for you. I'm handing him over to you, she shrieked sharply, causing quite a racket. Thus, I simply removed her jaw. How dare she turn a serious life or death grudge into a petty squabble? Regardless of gender, I'm ready to knock anyone out with a single punch. Nearby, Rylan's eyes reddened instantly as he glared at me, his body crackling with lightning, like a leopard on the brink of death. He attempted to deliver a fatal blow to the hunter in a desperate counterattack. Seeing this, I simply moved my fingertips and effortlessly immobilized him on the spot. Neither person nor power could find room to be exercised. As the captain of the base guard, you fled the battle, abandoning your team and the civilians. You deserve to die. Everyone has the right to survive, including me, he retorted. I wouldn't listen. Go die. I gave an innocent smile, gently placing my rough hand on his bloodied skin. I tore it apart, after 3 difficult waves of zombie attacks. The outer walls of the base were severely damaged, fortunately. The losses among the superpowered and the guards were minimal. This was largely because the zombies were still relatively weak in the early days of the apocalypse. Even in groups their lethality was not significant. However, I remembered the upcoming waves of zombies that the northern base would face in the next few years. By then, each victory would only be won through the sacrifices of successive superpowered individuals. I didn't want to see that happen, so I decided to migrate westward. During my 3rd evolution, my consciousness spanned the continent, witnessing the fall of the southern and eastern regions. Thus, only the west, the Tibetan area, remained as the last bastion for human survival. If we didn't move at the onset of the apocalypse, we wouldn't be able to escape once the zombies grew stronger. The base leader considered my plan for only 5 minutes before agreeing. So, the survivors of the northern base began a long, arduous journey toward that hopeful land. I used my spatial abilities to transport supplies while people drove out in droves with their belongings. After a grueling journey lasting nearly half a year, we finally arrived in the west. It was January 1st of the new era, year 2, at 6 a.m. The northern survivors entered the western base only to find it eerily deserted. The western base had vanished. Before despair could set in, someone found a set of coordinates left by the base. Following these coordinates, we were stopped by a massive canyon. The western region, near the tectonic plate boundaries, had experienced unusual seismic activity a few months earlier. A huge rift valley had emerged overnight during people's sleep, cutting off transportation. The western base had fortuitously relocated to the other side of the rift, isolated from the zombie hordes of the northeast and south. That meant there was a survivor-built base standing safely on the ruins of the apocalypse on the other side of the rift. It was humanity's last bastion of hope. While everyone looked on tiptoe in anticipation, I had already followed the coordinates and teleported. On the tranquil Tibetan plateau stood a towering steel fortress. When I appeared out of thin air, the base guards didn't show alarm but exchanged glances. One guard turned and ran inside the base, while others eagerly approached to ask my name. I'm Ella. It's her, the savior. The prophesied savior has appeared. The guards looked at me with reverence, their eyes filled with fervor. I frowned in confusion, puzzled. Prophecy? What prophecy? Just then, a small figure I hadn't seen in a long time ran out of the base gates. Luna, like a joyful little bird, flew into my arms. Her soft, light-colored short hair had grown long and curled lightly on her shoulders. I hugged her tightly, cherishing a kiss on her forehead. This child. She was already 6 years old. Sister, you've come to get me. I'm here. I always said I would come. Soft little hands gently caressed my face, tenderly wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes. Luna's parents, dressed in military uniforms, stood nearby with kind smiles and invited me into the base. Luna, are you a prophet? I asked. No, she replied. In the clean resting room, Luna, with her innocent charm, leaned against me swinging her little legs, despite her denial. As I walked through the base, I had heard of numerous prophecies she had successfully foreseen. For instance, 5 months ago, she predicted a meteorite would fall on City H. 4 months prior, she foretold a rift appearing in the west. 3 months ago, she declared an outbreak of a zombie tide. 2 months before, she envisioned a savior named Ella appearing outside the base. Each and every one of these events came to pass, saving the western base and elevating Luna to a deity-like status among the survivors. Yet now, Luna claimed she could not prophesy. There was only one possibility left. She, like me, had been reborn. This time, Luna did not deny it. In my past life, after I died, my soul stayed with my sister, so I knew about our parents in the western base. But then my sister died too, and I woke up, she explained, mentioning death. The child in my arms clung tightly around my neck, afraid to let go. I comforted her by patting her back, recalling the small figure I saw just before I died in my previous life. It was indeed my little sister, who had been with me all those years. So, when you decided to leave me and return to the western base, was it to convince them to move there before the rift appeared? I asked. Yes, I said I was a prophet so they would believe me, she admitted with her cheeks puffed, her round eyes slightly squinting. proudly like a little cat that had done a good deed. I laughed as I popped a candy into her mouth and pinched her chubby cheeks, feeling a softness in my heart. How could you lie that I would definitely come to find you? That didn't happen in our past lives. I didn't lie, I saw it. Her eyes, bright under crescent-shaped brows, were filled with certainty. Saw what? I saw you becoming strong, defeating those two villains. And then we won. Did everyone survive? Yes. According to Luna's prophecy, humanity had survived. The future had changed. I returned to the other side of the rift, using a fold to establish a passage and gradually moved people across. From nightfall to dawn and back to night, we finally completed the migration. Survivors, standing in front of the intact gates of the western base, embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces in excitement. I handed over all the supplies I had brought from the base and those collected along the way, significantly increasing our stock. The western base had started cultivating crops and cleared out the zombies, beginning some small-scale livestock farming. The resources were sufficient for all the remaining survivors. After settling everyone, I rushed to the research institute of the base. In the original story, the female protagonist, Snow, persistently researched a substance called the reversal potion. This was humanity's ultimate hope for liberation. Capable of repairing virus-mutated genes and achieving the miraculous transformation of zombies back into humans, sadly, until humanity's extinction, she never succeeded. Whether the western base could achieve this remained uncertain. Upon entering the base, the researchers, all wearing white lab coats, were diligently at work. When they noticed me, they paused their tasks and gathered around. The lead researcher, an elderly man with white hair, came over excitedly to shake my hand. I shared my ideas about the reversal potion, sparking a vigorous discussion among the group. I heard that the northern base once accidentally discovered a special spring water that could alter the virus's structure, but unfortunately, the data was lost when the base was destroyed. Someone mentioned, silently. I took out several hundred bottles of this mystical spring water from my space. I heard about a meteorite that fell in City H, which could have been used to study the zombie virus's origin, but sadly its whereabouts are unknown. Again, in silence, I produced the meteorite, now stored in a vacuum box. From my space, I heard there were intelligent mutants among the zombies, but unfortunately, they were never captured after extensive searching. Without a word, I took out the body of the zombie king and a half-sliced head from my space. The researchers, seeing these materials as treasures, tearfully looked at me. The savior, sister, you wouldn't happen to be one of those apocalypse protagonists with a golden touch, would you? Amidst the fervor, I simply waved my hand, unsure how to explain, but their mention of a main character did remind me of a couple of people. From the research institute, I shifted thousands of miles away to the northern base. They were thrown back into the fold. Two tightly bound individuals were harshly dumped onto the ground, writhing and groaning madly. The bystanders remained silent, furrowing their brows as they questioned whether the figures on the ground could still be called human. Compensate with an antidote. Would an antidote bring my sister back to life? My skin, the person stammered as chunks of flesh fell away, revealing dark, pus-oozing innards, with only half a face remaining and the jawbone detached. While black blood continuously poured from the mouth, they looked at them. They were hardly human anymore, more like half-human, half-corpse. These were subjects I had specifically prepared for experimentation at the western base. Initially, I didn't kill them, I just twisted their limbs and dumped them at the northern base. Sealing them in, killing them easily would have been too lenient. Rylan, Snow, use the last remnants of your lives to offer some final value to humanity. Ignoring the desperate groans of the two on the ground, I resolutely turned and left. In the third year of the new era, I led the team of mutants, traversing the ends of the rift. We searched for scattered survivors in the eastern, southern, and northern regions, gathering supplies and discovering numerous fallen meteorites. By the fourth year of the new era, the number of evolved mutants among humans continued to increase. Together, we built a new base on the ruins of the old human stronghold. In the fifth year of the new era, the development of the reversal serum was successful. We moved among hordes of zombies, injecting them en masse with the serum and settling them in the newly established base. By the seventh year of the new era, the last of the zombies had disappeared, the apocalypse ended, and the course of human history continued, ushering in a triumphant conclusion for humanity. I brought Rylan and Snow, restored to their human forms, back to the original northern base. Ella, I was wrong, please forgive me, Ella, you wretch. You won't die a good death. You're just a minor villain. After my rebirth, you'll be the first one I kill. Ha ha ha. Thud. As they fell from the city wall amidst the howling wind, they crashed into a heap of mush. The world did not collapse, the timeline did not rewind, and no one was reborn again. The dawn's early light appeared on the horizon, signaling a bright future ahead. I sat on the city wall, laughing. As I enjoyed the breeze of the wilderness, I'm not just a minor villain, I am the strongest villain of the apocalypse.